May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osaya anakituya, abarigani, manut, akwaba, medase, etesen, wagwan, kamsamida. Jambo, Mimini Kofi Nina Franco Katana Nuewe, Bokur Tov, Bokur Tav, Bakwatav, Barakalat Sham Yahava, Shalom Alad Sham Yahava, and I Kofi, head of Servants of Christ, Mashalom Chi. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor of Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for joining us here today. As usual, we appreciate you. We thank you for spending some time with us, and we take great pleasure in spending some time with you one more again. We're thankful to have everybody joining us. Hopefully you're having a great day, a great start to the day. And hopefully you are doing some great things. We want to go ahead, as we usually do, and promote some of the people who are doing great things in our community and the businesses that they have. So we want to go ahead and lift up one in particular to you. If I can scroll to you to it. There we go. Would like to go ahead and once again invite you guys to check out Brother Jermaine, who has great product, just does different things as far as make shirts and different clothing items for those who are members of SOC and really anybody who would like one. You can see one that he made specifically for Solomon and his business / YouTube channel. For Solomon still loves that he has merch. But if you're on TikTok, you're able to see it. Thank you for joining us on the podcast, YouTube and TikTok as well. But he has many different shirts. Some of you have seen me wear a few of the items, and you've seen some others wear a few of the items from time to time. So if you're interested, just let us know. You can reach him at jermaineinsurance@gmail.com, or you can reach him if you are part of the Facebook community. He's one of the people who are one of the members of that Facebook group. And that's Jermaine Insurance, that's JERMAINE insurance@gmail.com. And go and check him out when you get an opportunity to. And if you can be a blessing to him in his business, we really believe in uplifting the business of those who are members and part of the community. And hopefully you can do so. Amen. Sorry, hold on. All right, so we thank you for doing that in advance. We appreciate you. And we are going to continue this series. We once again give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. She has many different tinctures to be able to help you with health concerns and help you with healing. The tincture of the month that's being promoted is elderberry, but there are many different tinctures, and we have many different testimonials if you'd like to be able to see and hear what people have to say about her product. Her product, although we are non-profit, she is a for-profit, so she will work with you on prices. But if you would like to talk to her more about that, you can feel free to do so. Just look in our link tree. Okay, we're promoting. If you're on the podcast, coming over later from Facebook, YouTube, you can look at the description with either the episode or the video. If you are with us on TikTok, you can just go to the link tree, find out how you can get in touch with us, and we'll make sure we get you the product ASAP. Those who might be looking and waiting on calendars right now, obviously because of the snowstorm, and on top of that, because of MLK Day, stuff is slowed down, but we are working on making sure we get you your physical copies. If you haven't gotten one yet, you should have gotten a virtual copy. And for some of you who do a lot and help us with moderator responsibilities and things of that nature, you should have gotten something as a little treat recently as well that is Elder Maya's gift to you all for helping us the way that you do. Amen. All righty. But thank you all. We appreciate you. Hopefully you all are doing well. And we're going to continue to talk about expect the blessing today. We've been using the Roman road. Today we will not be using the Roman road. We'll be using Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2, continuing what we just did in early Rise of Bible study session, right? But we'll be going back to the Roman road, and hopefully you guys will be able to catch on to some of this stuff, and hopefully it's a blessing to you all. We're going to go back to Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. So if you want to go ahead there, we're going to speak on MLK Day today, right? And we want to make sure that we talk about something very specific that we need to make sure that we are careful of people. That happens quite often with us, especially as our story gets ensnared by his story, and therefore takes a whole nother route. Come on. So hopefully you will do so. And when I said the link tree earlier, if you're on TikTok, just go to our main TikTok page. You can go in the description, or even where it says website, click on the link tree there. And as soon as you do that, you'll be able to find different ways that we can connect, and you can find out more information. Hallelujah. Amen. All right. But let's say hello to everybody. If you want to go ahead and turn once again in your Bibles to Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. And we'll go ahead and read that. Matter of fact, we'll read Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. And if you want to go ahead and turn with us in your Bibles, feel free to do so. Once you have it, say amen, say I got it, say I'm with you, etc. So we can know that we're all together. We can read together. In the meantime, let's go ahead and say hello to everybody. How you doing, Mad Trucker, Brother TJ, Minister Tracy, Sister Joy, Raphael, Sister Nadine, Catherine, Money Green, DB, JP, everybody. Sister Nadine, thank you for the love, by the way. Any like, share, subscriptions, all that stuff, being part of the community. If you're on YouTube, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification tab if you haven't done so already, so that when videos come up, you can be alerted. How you doing, Keith? Sister Linda, if I miss your name on any of the platforms, shout it to my head and not to my heart. We appreciate everybody. How you doing, Isha? Sister Sabria, everybody already. So we're going to go to Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. I'm going to recite it. So if a couple of words are off here or there, please forgive me. I'll make sure that you have it so you can study it on your own, to make sure I'm not just coming up with something off the top of my head. Matter of fact, we'll read it. Holy Spirit said read it today. We didn't read it for the early rise that we recited it, but Holy Spirit said read it this time, so we'll read it. We're going to Habakkuk chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 2 and 3. Some of you, if you don't regularly read Habakkuk, you might have to go to your your table of contents, right? If you're turning, when you start getting to like Amos and stuff like that, if you see Haggai, or if you see stuff like Malachi, Zechariah, Zephaniah, stuff like that, you've gone a little too far. But if you want to go ahead and turn there, we'll give you a couple more seconds. How you doing, Brother Craig? Hey, Ray, you off work? Yeah, amen. And those who get a break off work, if you're dealing with snow. I didn't know that there was snow in Texas. Sister Shima informed us that there's snow in Texas, so you guys be careful down there. We know what happened last time when there was snow and people were not prepared. So prayerfully, they're more prepared this time for you, to make sure that everybody's safe. If you're on TikTok, be careful. Just a second. We're going to pause just for a second. Hold on. Got to make sure that the battery's taken care of so that we don't lose them. Oh, wow. Why are they doing this stuff on TikTok? TikTok really is messing with us these last few days. We're going to get this together, though. Okay, can you guys see us, hear us? Oh, wait, we still got us. Okay, sorry about that. TikTok messing with us a little bit again. All righty, we're going to Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. All right, and if you haven't, say amen. We're going to go ahead. If you want to put your right hand in the air, you put your device in the air, or put your Bible in the air, the right hand, just repeat after me and say, this is my Bible, this is my sword, and this will I trust. For Yahashua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Atsham Yahava. Amen. Amen. All righty. Going to Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. Right? It reads as follows. It says, and Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon the tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. We've just read Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. May Yahweh have a blessing to those who read, hear, and especially do what the word of Yahweh says. If you're standing or reverencing the word in some kind of way, you may be seated. Thank you so much for joining us and us being in agreement. Amen. How many people know about agreement when we get to Shabbat, or get to, when we get to Shabbat, or we get to Pentecost? How many people know it's important that we came together and we come together still with one mind, right? One accord and in one place. Amen. So thank you for your agreement. Today we're going to be talking about in this series, Expect the Blessing. We're taking a little detour from the Roman road. However, in Expect the Blessing, we will talk about today changing the dream. Changing the dream. How you doing, Taking King, or Talking King? Not sure, right? Changing the dream. How you doing, Sister Mignon? There's a lot of issues that are going on because dreams have been changed. We talked about today chasing the dream earlier, right? On our early rise of Bible study session, we talked about chasing the dream, that you shouldn't allow certain things to start messing with the dream. And we talked about the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. did not pass away so that we could just simply say that we're chasing a dream, but he wanted us to have a goal and to meet an expected end. Matter of fact, the Bible says that the Most High has an expected end. He doesn't just start things in your life, he finishes things, right? If he tells you to go in a certain direction, it's because it's already finished. So when what you're chasing, you should be chasing as if it's going to be finished, right? Well, today we had to be careful, because what happens is a lot of times we change the dream, and a lot of people will change the dream. Our story becomes his story, and it becomes something that is changed, right? So now we're not following what the Most High wants us to follow. Now we're not following what even our ancestors did, what they bled for, what they actually wanted us to have. It has been changed. And you'll hear a lot of stuff about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. if you haven't already. I don't watch television and stuff like that, and I don't really watch commercials, therefore, so I don't know what people are telling you about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but it's probably the same old, basically that America was in shambles. Here we are dealing with coming out of Jim Crow, and now we're going from Jim Crow to we're getting into civil rights. And there stood this man amongst many, but he was the one that was the greatest, and he made sure that he gave us a word, and he taught us right from wrong. And they gave a march, and he said, "I have a dream." And right after that, somebody didn't like the dream, and therefore they took his life. And when they took his life, America got it together, and therefore a sign of us having it together is that we celebrate this day, right, and give him honor and credit, right? That's kind of what we're sold, right? I haven't really been paying attention, but it's usually the same thing. It's usually around the same area, right? And we're usually told, this is what we're told that we're supposed to celebrate, right? And this day, even though today is actually Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, every year it's not on his actual birthday. It's usually going to be on a certain Monday, right, of the year. But today is actually his born day. Today is when he was actually born, January 15th, 1929. And how you doing, Sister Monica? And a lot of us are not aware of the fact that a lot of things about him have changed, right? Actually born, I believe, born in Atlanta, Georgia, for those people that are in Georgia. And a lot of people are not aware that what he has put before us has been changed up, has been washed, has been brushed aside, and has been manicured so much it has been appropriate. It has been made appropriate. Remember what the definition of appropriate is, right? If you appropriate something to make something appropriate, it literally means that you have taken something from its culture without permission. You have taken what was fine about it and defined it. You've broken it down. Then you have reconstructed it, right? You have reverse engineered it. And when you reverse engineered it, you have done so usually for a profit. And if anybody follows what you have now reverse engineered, you call that appropriate. That's the definition right? A little bit of a working definition, if we say, if to be honest with you, but that is a definition. Look up the definition of appropriate, and you will discover that. So we talked about before that really we want to start, especially as Yehavada, we would like to start becoming inappropriate. We would like to become a people that are not worried about trying to make sure that we do things according to what has been changed, but things according to the origin. We don't want to be unoriginal. We want to be aboriginal in our thought process. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? And so if this is the case, and we want to make sure that we are being inappropriate and actually being aboriginal and going back to the original intent, salvaging things, that we cannot allow somebody to change the dream. All right, how you doing, Michael? Thanks for being on. We cannot allow someone to change the dream. Yeah, they offed MLK and then they gave him a holiday, right? And we allow people to change these dreams. We talked about chasing the dream earlier. How you doing, Brother TJ? If I didn't say so earlier, we've allowed people. How you doing, Sister Shima? We allow people to stop us when we chase the dream, but it's hard to chase a dream that's been changed. Right. We talked about chasing the dream in our early Rise of Bible study session. If you'd like to get the link for that, let us know. Or you can simply as well go to Facebook or someplace where we posted it. You can go to our WhatsApp group, and even one of the men's chats that we have, it should be in there as well. And you can catch up on that. Right. Or just let us know, go to the link tree or contact us and we'll let you know. Right. And we'll give you what you need to listen in. But you got to realize that the dream was changed. But also, so when the dream was changed, how do you chase what's changed? How do you have a goal in mind when the dream is changed? If you're given a dream or a vision and you're around an environment that is constantly trying to change your dream or vision, how do you get there? What is the path to something that changes every day? Right. This is why some of our children have an issue with following things that we say, because we say, follow our example, do this, do that, but you're not even consistent in what you do. So your children are like, well, this thing is constantly changing. What is the example? What is the vibe? You tell me to treat people with respect, but when I come home, you're disrespectful. How do I chase what is constantly changed? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? And once again, as we said earlier, check out Brother Jermaine and the product and stuff that he has. Hopefully you guys will, continue to bless him and let him be a blessing unto you with his business, right? How do we change, or how do we chase what keeps getting changed? How is it, if this is what our culture says a wife is, if this is what our culture says a mother is, if this is what our culture says a child is, but we keep allowing someone else to change it, how do you chase what has changed? Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, Selena Penland, Toussaint Louverture, uh, um, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Cloud Anderson, right? These are people who have dedicated their life. We can keep on going over and over and over again, right? But these are people who have dedicated their lives, right? You want to talk about Moses. You want to talk about Abraham. You want to talk about the Messiah. You want to talk about Paul. You want to talk about John. You want to talk about James. These are people who have dedicated their lives, even if their lives had to be lost, or even if their last breath was in the midst of them doing something to change things, right? To continue to make sure that we could chase the dream that's been given to us from on high. This is what it's about. These people gave their lives, and what happens is a lot of people have tried to change who they are. And so even though we will talk a lot about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in this year, we're expecting the blessing. If we expect the blessing, we can't allow a changed thought process or outlook. What we start out in, remember, we're focusing on transitioning from January 1st all the way through April 9th, where our actual new year begins. And even before that, around March 13th, we're going to start removing the leaven from our home, which means to remove sin. Leaven, or sin, even meaning something, representing something that causes us to miss the mark. And we will not allow, I declare it over my life and over the lives of those who are listening. However, right, I can declare something in faith, but now here has to come the works. I declare over our lives that we will meet everything that Yahweh said for us because we expect it, and he expects it. And if he expects it, he expects it to be even greater than what we thought, right? However, on this journey, we cannot allow somebody to change the dream. Do you hear what I'm saying? On this journey, we cannot allow people to change it up. Bill Russell passed away. Some of you know who Bill Russell is, famous basketball player, won more championships than just about anybody else, was the first black man to win a championship in the NBA, did so as a player, right? Won 11 championships in 13 years, only lost because he ran into Wilt Chamberlain one year, then another year he was injured, right? Great person. And all they do is talk about Bill Russell when he passed. Everybody changed. It's interesting. When he changed, right? When he passed away, oh, he was a great man. He was somebody that wanted to help all. He was this, he was that. But they don't tell you that when Bill Russell played for the Boston Celtics, Boston was one of the most racist towns, and still is, right? In the United States of America, not just on the East Coast. How you doing, Sister Renee? How you doing, Sean? Not just on the East Coast, in the United States of America. As a matter of fact, I would venture out to say probably one of the most racist places in the world, right? But they would just go, oh yeah, he just played for the Boston Celtics. They don't tell you that he had a home, and people would flip over his trash cans and stuff, and they would let dogs take craps in his yard, and they would make marks on his house and do all types of stuff, and they would write the N-word here or there while he was traveling and different things. And they won't tell you that even though Red Auerbach opened up the doors to him and said, come on in, and they won't tell you that even though some of his teammates, while Red was doing that, some of the teammates that y'all love to bring up are some of the very people that were extremely racist towards him and couldn't stand him and talk trash about him when they left the team and they retired. But they won't tell you that Bill Russell calls the police and says, hey, you got to do something about people coming on my land and doing stuff to my house. And they say, well, Bill, you just gonna have to deal with it. Go win us some championships, boy. But we just got to remind you and N-word, you just gonna have to deal with it. We ain't gonna do nothing about it. He says, okay, well then by law, I'm allowed to shoot them when they come on my property. Is that correct? Next thing you know, then the police officers start giving out warnings. They don't tell you that about Bill Russell. They don't tell you that once Bill Russell retired from being in Boston, he would not work for the Celtics. He became a coach and coached all the way on the other side of the country. He lived in California for most of his life and didn't start coming back to Boston until much later in his life. Couldn't stand Boston. Played for him all those years. They don't tell you that Bill Russell was somebody where people looked at as bad because when Muhammad Ali, when he decided he wasn't going to go to war, and I'm just quoting, forgive me, this for educational purposes only. I'm not trying to curse or anything. I'm just quoting, right? When Muhammad Ali stood up and said, no Viet Cong ever called me nigger. And Bill Russell decided to stand up behind him with Jim Brown, who decided to stand up, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who they couldn't stand because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had changed his name from Lou Alcindor to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, another person who they talk poorly about. Now they want to tell you how much they praise him and they loved him, but they want to talk about how cantankerous he is. But you don't realize he changed his name because he basically said, look, man, I can't even be around this hypocritical Christian nation when you guys treat me like crap and won't even allow me to play the game, and you keep changing the rules because you don't want me to succeed as a man of color. Changing the dream. And so Bill Russell passes away, and now everybody says, oh, how great was Bill Russell? But you got to write down the vision and make it plain upon the tablets, and it's got to speak and not lie. Right? It's got to speak and not lie. You are liars. You're in a lying country. You're in a country that says that George Washington never told a lie. He told his father, I tell you not a lie. I had to chop down that cherry tree. And everybody says George Washington was so pious and he was so great. George Washington didn't even believe in the Bible. George Washington married somebody who was a brunette, a brunette. Brunette back then in those days mean that she passed for white. That's what brunette actually means. You have Negroid features. And she passed for white. And George Washington's boy was King George, who married another woman who passed for white. Meanwhile, while he married a woman that passed for white, he said that other women who looked like they were black, they weren't women, and he was doing stuff to them. He died because of syphilis, because he was constantly doing stuff and not taking care of his hygiene, and that means he passed syphilis on to those he was doing and stuff like that, doing those things too. And George Washington, who never told a lie, was the same George Washington they said he had dentures in his mouth, and they'll tell you that he just had these dentures that were made out of ivory, but that's the fifth set of dentures they finally came up with. The first four were had wood, and they had human teeth in it. Yes, human teeth that he would take out of the mouths of his slaves, and then they try to pass that over and say, well, every once in a while he threw some pennies at them for taking their teeth, and since he threw a couple of coins their way, it means that he was a great person. Literally ripping the teeth out of their mouth. There's horror movies where they rip the teeth out of people's mouth, but they want you to believe that he was this pious person. When you go to his land over in Mount Vernon in Virginia, right, in the DMV, go to his land in Mount Vernon, not too far from where I grew up, even though I didn't go there until I was an adult. But you go over to his land, and when you go over there, you will see very plainly, they'll tell you stories. They'll say, oh yeah, George Washington, he was a really great person. And one of the stories they'll tell you he was a really great person is that one of his overseers started whipping up on a female slave, and he whipped up on her, then he whipped up on her a second time and almost took her life. She was at the point of death. And then George Washington, he listened, he overheard, and he was fair and unbiased, and he said, yeah, you did what was right. She deserved it. Changing the dream. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? Oh, thank you, Sister Kimberly. We did receive the gift. I didn't know that it was being sent. Praise God. I'm going to try it out at some point. It's not. I didn't have it set up for today, but I'm gonna try it out. Maybe we'll try it out this evening to see. And if it works the way that it looks like it's supposed to, then I'll be able to go outside eventually at some point and even be able to walk away, and y'all still be able to hear me and stuff like that. So thank you so much for that. We did receive, but we'll try it out at some point. Right? You said Bill Russell went to your high school. Okay, cool. Right? Still harvesting organs, doing things like that, sure. Right? But the dream has changed. The dream has changed from we expect this to now we just want to chase. Right? And so we're chasing after changed dreams. The goal wasn't, hey, Black Lives Matter. That's nice. But if we talked about this earlier this rising, if your whole mindset is, I just want to be treated like a human being, and that's a starting point. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, no offense to those who marched, no offense to the little girls who I saw that made me cry when they were sitting up there saying Black Lives Matter with all power and stuff like that. No offense to them. Heck, I was not going to go out there because I didn't agree with the organization. I agree that Black Lives Matter, but the organization was trash, and I think it's shown itself to be trash. That being said, right? That being said, I believe that Black Lives Matter, but if that's the end all be all, right? If that's the end all be all, we're gonna have issues, right? We're gonna have issues. If your goal is, I want to just say that my life matters, we're gonna have issues. If that's the end of it. And by the way, some of you need to even stop looking for that because you've been asking for that for how many years now? See, don't change the dream. The dream shouldn't be just treat me like a human being. The dream is, hey, we want to go back. The dream is, for real, we made more money in segregation than we did in integration. How you doing, Damon, if I didn't say so already? Right? Let's just keep it a buck. The dream was never. I'm now look. I'm not sitting here saying therefore we won't do anything with white people. I'm not saying every white person is evil. I'm not. What I'm saying is that let's be real. The most that you've ever done as a society, as a nation, as a diaspora, has been in integration or has been when you've had your own kingdom. So if the goal is one day out of integration and us telling you and agreeing that the white man's ice is colder, that at some point you'll finally treat me like a white man. I don't want to be treated like a white man, because even if we agree on everything, even if we're agreeable, even if we love one another, even if we're getting along, then first of all, we know that white is not even a color, but let's just go off of these colonial and social constructs. Well, then fine, the white man and the Black man should respect each other, and I shouldn't have to be treated like a white man. Treat me like a Black man and be okay with the Black man having respect like a white man should have respect. And you should take care of what's causing you to look disrespectful, and I should take care of what's causing me to look disrespectful. And we should therefore, once we can hold ourselves accountable, we should be able to hold each other accountable. And how you doing, Sister Deja, if I didn't say so already? Right? This is real talk, right? We got to stop changing the dream. We have to stop changing the dream. The dream is not, I have a dream that one day, right? That one day we'll still be looking to be treated like human beings. Right? I've gone to the mountaintop and I've seen the other side. And I might not get there with you. Wait a minute. That within itself tells me that somebody's got to get there. He's speaking like Moses would have done when he got up and he could look to the other side and see that he led his people there, but he was not going to be able to get in. How you doing, David? This is the reality. Right? I've seen the other side. I might not get there with you, but it doesn't mean that you can't get there. So now we got to stop having people change the dream. The dream is not for us to keep talking about, hey, there was a black man that created the light bulb, right? About Lewis Latimer, right? Even though Lewis Latimer should get respect, but it can't be, hey, Lewis Latimer, because Lewis Latimer lived better than we do. That should show us that we went backwards. Come on, let me help somebody. When you talk about Lewis Latimer lived better than you. How is Lewis Latimer living better than you in Jim Crow? Unless things have gotten worse. You just go, well, we got and think about the arguments people give us. You get to go to schools now. So did Lewis Latimer. You get to go ahead and have technology. Lewis Latimer had the best technology of his day. Matter of fact, he patented the technology. Matter of fact, he's the one that patented the filament that's able to give you the light bulb, because Thomas Edison's light bulb couldn't burn that well, right? Thomas Edison's light bulb sometimes exploded. You couldn't use the stuff. So if there is no Lewis Latimer, there is no light bulb, at least not in the way that you use them at some point. Now light bulb technology has changed somewhat. But what you consider to be the light bulb, that's not Thomas Edison. I even went to Thomas Edison High School, right? Thomas Edison gets all his credit for stuff. Thomas Edison was not the inventor. He was an inventor to a certain degree, but he hired other people and they worked for him. And anybody that got something done, the Edison group got it done. Therefore, Thomas Edison got the credit. Right? But we've changed the dream. The dream is just, hey, mention Lewis Latimer. No, when you mention Lewis Latimer, mention the fact that Lewis Latimer would look at us today and say, how did you guys fall? How you doing, Brother Yosef? Right? When you mention, I can't even remember the sister's name, please forgive me, the sister who made the air conditioning unit, who never got credit for it, right? Who died poor, a sharecropper, and didn't get credit for making something that where the air was able to go through the whole house. Never got credit for her creation, right? She came up with the air conditioning unit, right? When you mention her in the air conditioning this year, don't just say, oh, okay, she made the air. Mention, hey, how is it that we're still creating things to this day and not getting credit? When you mention stuff like the cotton gin and it's taught about in schools, mention the fact that, hey, we still have people out here who are slaves to a system, who are making things to make their lives easier and then cannot even patent their own works because they're not even taught, hey, patent it so you can have financial wealth and goals taken care of for your children's children. You think he tried to discredit it? I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't doubt it. Right? For sure. Right? We're still dealing with the same stuff. How you doing, Noel? We're still dealing with the same stuff. Right? We're told this is the first black man to do brain surgery. This is the first black woman to do successful brain surgery. They were doing successful brain surgery in Kemet 5,000 years ago. This is the first. Wow, we're just finding out that communication can be done, and we're studying the animals to see how they do frequency and how dolphins and false killer whales and stuff can have their own languages and then come together in these super pods and they can talk one to another. Do you not know that there are castles built to where literally they keep history and frequency? Did you know that? Like, this is not even a joke. This is not even a somewhat esoteric conversation. No, literally, there are castles built by POC, by people of color, that have been around for thousands of years, to where literally you can go there And they actually used to keep history, not just carved in walls, but they actually have sounds. You can touch certain walls and the walls make certain sounds, and you're supposed to be able to translate the sounds into words. This is, but what we keep changing the dream to where just credit us with humanity. We were humanity before there was a such thing as white or black. As far as you attributing it to a people. Now let's they get tricky with that. People of Kemet call themselves people of Kemet, and the people of Kemet, they believe they're people that came out of the black sands. That's why they are black people. So they had no problem with being black. And the people of Kemet were mixing the Israelites, and so were the people of Cush, who are actually the people who predated the people of Kemet and taught everybody in Kemet what they know. So therefore, they had no problem being black. And even when the Greeks would call us a people, they would call us in their language. Ethiopia is actually a Greek word, but Ethiopia was their way of saying the same word we called ourselves, which is what? It means the people who are burnt by the sun. Right? The people who are blackened by the sun. There's even a term that we use for some of our people that was called the slippery blacks, right? Because they would go to war, they would have so much battle and do so much battle that literally you would slip off of the black skin. That's what they would say to scare people, that they had that much blood that they would shed when they went to war. Matter of fact, the term negro or negro is something that goes way back to West Africa, because West Africans and Moors who began to go and have capitals in places like Spain, because don't forget, Moors were over what you now call Spain. Spain was not a country till 1491. Moors were over what you call Spain from 1491 all the way back to the 700s, and then Rome was over it. But then before that, you got to go back to North Africans. When you go back to Carthaginians who also have Israelite blood, who you would also call Phoenician, who you would also say were mixed with Canaanite, right? But we have this thing to where somebody's changed the dream. Your dream shouldn't be to try and figure out a new way to do something and be, no. Your dream is, let's get back to salvation, get to the original, the origin. Right? To get back to the origin. Why is it that nobody talks about when there were the Negro Leagues and the Major Leagues? Jackie Robinson was asked to come to the Major Leagues because the Major Leagues were losing money. They weren't making as much money as the Negro Leagues. Why is it never discussed that the Negro Leagues actually had it to where people were coming to them? Why is it never discussed that when the Negro Leagues and the Major Leagues came against each other, that was the original All-Star game, and the Negro Leagues would beat the brakes off of the Major Leagues about 9 out of every 10 times? Why is it never mentioned that Josh Gibson is considered to be a better baseball player than Babe Ruth, even though Babe Ruth himself, according to his own family, right, he was mixed, he was a brother himself, but he could pass, so they went ahead and hired him so he could help them to make money. Why is it never talked about these things? Because people keep changing the dream. The dream is not to try and become something great for the first time. The dream is to get back to greatness. That's what the dream is. That's what the dream was. Don't forget, right? I'm just trying to help you. Don't forget that you had buses and you had trains and you had taxis and all this stuff. But then when we did the whole, hey, let's go ahead and come together thing, and let's not get on their stuff, because why? Because we want to ride their buses. That was the goal. We want to be on their buses and be treated like human beings and not have to go to the back. And so we stopped riding their buses and stuff. We forget that there were buses that we had that still were there. But then we said, to get the dream together, what did we have to do? We had to say, okay, well, let's go ahead and stop riding buses altogether. Why? And then when we got there, okay, cool, we can call white taxi cab come into black neighborhoods and take us from somewhere in a black neighborhood to a black neighborhood, or a black neighborhood to a white neighborhood, et cetera, versus you already had stuff in your community. Why not keep focusing on that and become strong within yourself? Some of the best train companies that have ever existed that went all the way across West are owned by you. And some of the inventions on the train tracks are owned by you, patented by you, right? We have this mindset that we never had. And so we need to go back, when the reality is you had. Sometimes it was taken, sometimes you gave it up so you would be what? Integrated in, allowed in. Yeah, you said in about 50 years, it might be said somebody other than us created hip hop, R&B, rock, jazz, gospel. It already is, right? We know, for example, Elvis. We know, for example, Elvis, literally. You can look this up online, look up David Letterman show, uh, Look up David Letterman show Black Man Elvis. Just type that in someday, and what will come up is something where you'll see David Letterman interviewing a guy that's black, looks nothing like Elvis, and then sings. He says, "I have this new album. Here's a new record," and he starts to sing. Sounds like Elvis, but then they talk about it before he sings. He doesn't sound like Elvis. He used to be hired to do all the songs, make the dances, everything, sing it for Elvis, and then Elvis would learn how to copy off of him. And before that, in Tennessee, it wasn't just Elvis. Many people would go to these places where you would have sheds, or you would have a practice session late at night at the church, and they would stay there all night long. They still do this in a lot of churches, where somebody gets the key, and the musicians are able to stay in there all night, and they just practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. That's how they get better. That's how they get all these hits that y'all hear, and all these little, fun things that they do during your shout and stuff like that. They practice it so much, and people from other churches come and they learn it from one another. So even when one person goes to another church, hey, y'all do the same thing we do, and people get better and better and better, right? And people who were the people who are like the Elvis Presleys of the day, they would come in Tennessee specifically. They would sit down at night and they would watch us. So if we danced a certain way, if we did something like this, Elvis saw it and said, "I like that." Right? Elvis is even known. It's talked about by B.B. King. B.B. King said Elvis used to come with his guitar. Wasn't that great, but used to sit down and listen to him with strum, and B.B. King would just come in there and record, and there'd be Elvis sitting there listening. Right? And we act like we didn't have, when the reality, you've always been the progenitor of greatness because you're great. Not saying nobody else can be great. I'm saying that you were great, and we have to get back. That is the dream. The dream is to get back to the original intent. The dream is to get back to where your business is just as important as somebody else's. Your food is just as important as somebody else's food, right? Your life is just as great as somebody else's life. It doesn't have to be better. It should be considered to be just as great, right? That's the goal. Remember when uh the when we even talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech, which they act like he gave that speech and his life was taken. His life wasn't taken until 1968. March on Washington was 1963, right? And in 1963, remember, originally it had nothing to do with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It had nothing to do with speeches. Originally, it was going to be a lot of black folk that were going to come on Washington, D.C. from all around the country, and they were ready to lay down on the airport, right, on the ground at the airport. It was grassroots movement, but they were coming looking for not just protests. They were looking to take over DC. They were getting ready to loot, not even loot. They were getting ready to take over certain stores that weren't theirs. Right. Matter of fact, if you know about even what happened after King passed away, you'll discover that, and I know this from people who lived at the time, right, in Baltimore, in DC. Right. I've had people tell me about this during the looting and stuff. There's still, to this day, some places you can see it still spray painted on walls and stuff, where people would put certain marks on the walls and let you know, hey, this store is all right. They take care of their people. Right. Like they're still there to this day, believe it or not. There's still residue of, hey, we're coming there, and we're coming specifically to make sure that our people are uplifted. They were coming there for blood. They were coming there for war. Right. Rich white folk got a hold of it. They told JFK, you need to do certain things to take a hold of it. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and 5 others called the Big Six were brought in, and basically were told, if you don't do something, your people gonna get offed on national television. What you gonna do about it? And we'll just automatically say he was boule and this and that, but he had to make a decision, because he told them, I don't have anything to do with this. And they said, you're gonna have something to do with it. We're gonna make you in charge of it, or you're gonna watch your people get messed up. Because if they lay down on those runways, we'll have airplanes take off. At least try to. And even if some of our people on the plane get messed up, then people laid out, what you think's going to happen to them? They told them, like, this is either you're going to come in and do something about this, and you're going to take hold of this, or not. And they said, we'll give you the money for it. We'll fund it. We'll do this, whatever. But even when they were marching, there was residue. If you go back and watch some of those things as they're marching, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as they're marching towards the location, marching towards that link where the Lincoln Memorial is, they're marching there, and they say things like, we're coming and we're looking for our check. Because that was what they were talking about at first: reparations, payment. Give us what we're owed. And how you doing, Sister Sheila? Thanks for being on. Thank you for the love. Right? That became the peaceful protest. But before it was going to be peaceful, that wasn't what it was about. They paid off people, and they threatened them before they paid them off. Because watch this, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others in the movement, they weren't making money like we all think that they were rich in that. Their movements were starting to be squeezed in. So the president said, we'll take care of this and we'll look to the other side. We'll even send people to make sure that, those schools, they won't let them in down south. We'll get the National Guard on that, all that stuff. We'll have it to where y'all love the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party will now be something on the low, that even though we really doing the same thing, but low key, hey, we'll throw you a little bone here or there to make sure that y'all are straight. We'll give you more than what you had. But if you, because we don't want to look bad, but we're telling you, if you make us look bad, we will destroy y'all. And Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had to make a decision. Is it more important that we stand and say, take our lives, and I watch a bunch of my people pass? Or is it more important that I try to get little trinkets in there and at least make sure that things are peaceful? And I include all these people that really don't care about us anyway. It's that you're going to see black and white and all this coming together. But at least I won't have to watch my people die. He decided it was more important to do the latter. And somebody who would say that makes him a traitor, I guess it's like the same argument, hey, the people that made it here are the people that weren't willing to jump off the boat. Well, first of all, the people were in chains, right? Not everybody could just jump off the boat, right? But if you were somebody who was able to jump off the boat, I get it. You can say that all of us that are left over, the people that wouldn't fight, and so you can say we're the children of cowards and stuff. But at the end of the day, if they weren't cowards in your eyes, you wouldn't be here to talk bad about them. Right? You wouldn't be able to speak bad about their sacrifice or their lack of sacrifice, or they're willing to be a living sacrifice and stay alive and go through some of the most wild, crazy stuff ever, so that they can look at you, finally be able to make it to big up to you and everything. And while you get up there, then you get to look down upon them and tell them they ain't nothing. See, but this only happens when you change the dream. The dream should get back to the original. See, we just think about slaves. This is what you've been taught. Slaves came over. People that were here were slaves. They don't even tell you that you were here already too, not just over from Africa already, which was the truth, right? Look at those Olmec heads, Olmec She, Mexico, right? There is no sound in Espanol, yet you have all these sounds. You got to figure out where they came from you. But also, we don't want to talk about the fact that some of you were here already as natives, indigenous. Matter of fact, they've done something that obviously when they do this, they're not doing with every single person, but they've done some research and they've looked at DNA of people that are considered to be black, and something like 89% of you carry native DNA. Now, why is it? It's interesting that they keep telling you that the people who have the money are considered to be the $5 Indian people who don't have your blood, but they don't tell you about the fact that you have 89% of you carry native DNA. Right? You were scattered before you were scattered. You were the people who were making decisions before you make it. You were the one who was living the dream, and everybody saw a vision out of your dream before they even cared about white versus black. Yet somehow we have gotten to a place to where we're just hoping that we can sit at the table. Well, don't sit at the table until you first come with something. I haven't used this in a long time. Praise Yahweh. The Holy Spirit gave me an example a long time ago. Think about if you were playing poker, and in the casino you're going to, there's that back room, that room where people who really balling, right? They go to that back room and they get ready to play, right? And in that back room, you didn't even know it existed. And let's just say, for the sake of argument today, let's just say when you go back there, you represent the black diaspora. And when you go to that back room, and you're seeing somebody who represents the white diaspora, the Indian diaspora, the Chinese diaspora, whatever. Okay. And you go back there and you see that it's $50,000, $50,000 a game to play blackjack or to play poker. Right. Let's just say blackjack. That's an easier game to follow. Right. Because poker depends on what type of poker. And some people don't even really know how to play poker. That play poker. Let's just go blackjack. That's a little easier. Right. So you go back to this room where everybody got the money, and you can't even get in unless you got $50,000 a hand. You thought you were doing something because you came to the casino. You got more than most. You came with like 10,000. So you was straight. You was looking around, you came up in there, you couldn't wait to show everybody. Everybody's trying to deal with you, maybe 50 here, maybe 100 here, maybe playing $1, maybe putting a quarter in the slot and hoping they'll get 100 and something back, maybe, stuff like that, maybe hitting a little bit here where they get $10,000. You came with 10,000. You thought you was doing great until you found out that, wait a minute, there's a room that you're excluded from, and you walk back. And a lot of people don't know this, that they won't block you from coming in the room, right? How you doing, WIT? They won't block you from coming in the room. You said, did some natives own slaves? Yes and no. And even in that, what kind of slavery are we talking about? But yeah, I guess you could say natives own slaves from time to time. Matter of fact, as somebody who's Anakitoya, which is a branch of Cherokee, there were some Cherokees in my family who owned some Africans in my family, but then ended up becoming one when they weren't allowed to own slaves anymore. So, and that was because they were trying to side with the Confederacy, hoping that the Confederacy would give them something. The Confederacy said, well, if you want to be on our side, you got to do what we do, including now stop growing food the way you grow the way we say it, and stop having even prisoners of war that you have the way that the way you do, you got to own slaves. So it's a little more into that, but it's a little more intricate. And even when we talk about sometimes natives and black people owning slaves, we forget that some of the people who we just go, they were slave owners, would actually buy slaves and let the slaves be free on their land because they couldn't be free anywhere else. So they might have, if they got 100 acres of land and they get some slaves, some of them, not all, but some of them would be like, hey, just live here free. You ain't got to worry about anything. When you leave here, realize they're going to treat you like they treat black people or black persons, if they even consider them to be persons. So there's a lot of it's difficult to have this conversation, even when you talk about slavery and African stuff. It's difficult. Slavery in any kind of way, shape, or form is wrong. It's against the word of God. We shouldn't do it, right? That being said, where were we at? I'm sorry. See, now I got on something else. How you doing, Apostle Jabril? Where were we at? Where were we at before I started going into that? I'm sorry. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., something. How you doing? Is it Riri? Thanks for being on. You go back into this room where all the ballers are, right? And you go back into the poker room and you didn't even know it existed. They won't stop you from coming in there as much as you think that they will in movies and stuff like that. If you find a room like that, you're allowed to go in there. So you go in there, you see what's going on. You find out that there's a room going on with 50,000 and you go, well, wait a minute. You see that this diaspora has 1 million, the white diaspora has 1 million, and maybe the Indian diaspora has 250,000, and maybe the Chinese diaspora has 500,000, et cetera, et cetera. And you say, well, wait a minute, you guys took from me. I should be allowed at the table. They say, well, that don't matter. That's not how this works. They say, we don't care about that. We're not going to stop the game because you want to. Look, yeah, you're right. We do owe a lot of this stuff to what we took from you and everything. But so what? You don't have it anymore. Now, let's say you make enough of a fuss and somebody now they're getting ready to kick you out. And somebody and the different people say, look, man, whatever. Okay, let them play one game, right? Right. And they're even like, they don't even know how to play anyway. That's going to be funny. Right. But they feel a little guilty. They say, let's let them play. And so somebody give you a little here, a little here, a little here. You get about 50,000. And so you can finally play one game without knowing how to play blackjack, without knowing the rules, without being used to it, without being able to see somebody's poker face. Right. You have no clue how to play. You don't know what if the dealer says this, that, or whatever, how it operates. You might not even know that the dealer might not like you, because he don't work for you. He works for the establishment. So his goal is not to make sure you win. That's not the goal of the dealer. Matter of fact, the dealer, if you seem to be winning all the time, a lot of times they might say that they want to get rid of that dealer, or they try to figure out if you and the dealer got something going on. How you doing, Omex King? Right. So then you sit up there and you lose. Matter of fact, you had 21, didn't even know it. You had already won and didn't know it. You were already Israel and didn't know it. You already were the progenitors of righteousness and didn't know it. You already were melanin based and they were making, your computer and your device that you're using to listen to me today has you in it. Can't even exist, can't even work without you. You already won, but are unaware that you won. Don't really recognize that the game is over, that without you, the game can't be played. Right. But you already won. Let's say you got 21, didn't know it. You got an ace and you got a 10. Game over. You say, hit me. The dealer tries to tell you. You already won. But it said, no, you don't understand. I just came into the room and I got to be like, yo, you want to play the game? He's like, no, you don't even have to play it like this. Like, you already won. So then the dealer gives you a king. You got a 10, a king, and an ace. You still won, even though you tried to mess it up and didn't even know in your ignorance that you tried to mess it up. The dealer says, 21. You say, there's no way. I just started playing the game. There's no way I could be in this. There's no way I could be this important. There's no way I could have won. And the dealer says, all right, if you want, I'm telling you, if you get hit again, game over. They hit you again, game over. And they laugh at you on your way out. And on your way out, this is unfair. This is that. You didn't realize you already won, and you're still saying, give me more, give me more. And they're like, look, we gave you enough to play. Now, let's say after that, you go back and you say, I'm going to learn how to play blackjack. You might even learn how to count cards. You might learn how to do a bunch of stuff. They got to be careful in counting cards, right? But might learn all those things. You come back, you've made your money, you start a business, you got a lot of stuff. And this time you come back to the same room. You come back a year later. Same people in the room, same representatives of diaspora in the room, still playing. And this time now, they're sitting up there, they're laughing. One got $1 million, one's got 500,000, one's got 250,000. They just laughing at you like, you came back again. Yo, let them play. But we ain't giving you nothing this time. You say, okay, no problem. I got my own. And you don't have to pull out $1 million. But maybe you pull out 450,000 of your own. Everybody in the group says, how'd you go to 450,000? Well, how'd you? And then you win a couple games. Oh, wait a minute. They know how to play now. Right? Then there's a different thing. There's something now that has to be given to you, even if they don't like you. They have to give you something called respect. Right? Don't change the game. Don't change the dream. Go back to the original intent. If the goal is to go to the poker place anyways, to go to the blackjack room that you found was to make sure that you made something and that you were counted as being somebody who was allowed to sit at the table, then make that your goal and keep that the goal. Keep that the dream. Keep that the mission. Keep that the vision. Don't let them change it up on you. You said their med and cosmetic have a melanin plus or sunscreen has it in it. Yeah, right. Hallelujah, right? So hopefully somebody got the context of that, right? You go in there with the goal, the mission is still the same, the vision is still the same. See, when we left, well, we can't even say left, when we were taken from Africa, when we were taken from our homes in South America, taken from our homes in North America, taken from our homes in Europe. I know these movies want you to believe that they had never seen a painted man before, but go to England and go to Croatia and go to Russia and start looking at the flags on these castles. Why do you keep seeing black faces on these flags? Look up how they described King James and how they said that he was swarthy and how he had a nappy head and what his parents looked like. Look up King George's wife, who all 11 out of the 13 of their children that survived were married into other families. And other family they married into make up all the royal families that exist in Europe to this day. So you got to realize the goal is to get back to the original intent. Yahweh has a dream for Yehoshua that you come back into remembrance. Not recall, remembrance. You were once a member of something great. You were dismembered from that great thing, and now you need to be remembered. If your digit was taken off for some reason, it was a member of your body, something happened, now it is dismembered. In order to make sure you pick it up, you put it on ice, you put this on ice, right? You make sure you go there. Let's say your tooth is knocked out, right? You take it, you put it in milk so you can feed the tooth nutrients. You put some ice in the spot. This is what's going on in your mouth. You get to a dentist as soon as possible. You try to make sure that while there's some life there, you can attach it. Now, once it's remembered, now there's a process that has to go through. You got to go through some kind of physical therapy. Right? You got to go through some kind of physical therapy. How you doing, Nadine Bankston? We got two Nadines on, so say Nadine B. Nadine Bankston, just to make sure that I make a distinction between the two. But now that it's been dismembered, it's got to come back, and it's got to be remembered, and it has to even go through a process of physical therapy. First, it has to stay still and stay in place. See, a lot of us are coming into this, and then we try to hit the ground running, but you haven't been attached back to the body, attached back to your mindset, attached back to culture long enough to even do all that. You got to take your time. You're going to have to learn some things. You're going to have to grow on some things. What is your language that was the language of your origin? Not even the modern versions of it. What was the language of your origin? See, if we're going to expect the blessing, you got to expect an aboriginal blessing. Because to expect an unoriginal blessing is a modified version of you. Why would you settle for any less than who you are? Why would you accept anything less than your origin? Why would you accept anything less than at least knowing how to greet somebody in the original fashion? Why would you, if you had an opportunity to speak to your ancestor and you couldn't because you don't know the origin of it, how sad is that? Right? Why have you learned the origin of everybody else's story, but you can't tell me about Toussaint Louverture? Why is it that you believe the English version that they stopped slavery in 1804, which is not even accurate anyways? You got to wait a couple more years, but they stopped slavery, and that's why slavery stopped. Meanwhile, Haiti fought for its independence, and all of a sudden, France had to sell the Louisiana territory to the United States of America. Why is it that you keep talking about 1865 and Abraham Lincoln, who didn't even like you because he didn't like himself? Meanwhile, you don't know about the Seminole Wars and the Gullah Geechee Wars because you freed yourself. If you hadn't fought for you before before you were allowed in the Union Army, you were already fighting for you. Why is it that they don't tell you that there are more Afro-Mexicans than there are African Americans? I'm talking about by census, people that will identify as. There's a lot more African Americans that want to identify too, but go down there. There's more Afro-Mexicans, and they love Seminole people down there. The people of my wife, right? My wife, her people, right? That they love Seminoles. They love John Horace. Who is John Horace? Why is it that you've been taught that you had to wait on America to take your country and then free you before you realized that you had freedom anyways? Right? Because they're changing the dream. We keep changing the dream. I have a greater expectation than the one who will lie to me about who I am. So I might as well keep that expectation. I have a greater expectation for myself than the one who tells me to just get over it, Get over the fact that we did things to your grandmother and your great grandmother. Get over it. Get over the fact that we had this whole Jamaican, African versus Indian versus Maroon thing. And we won't talk about that. Get over that. Get over that type of mindset where the Caribbean thing's going on, and we'll just go ahead and tell you that you should say Wakanda forever. And now people will think that you're black, and we'll make you the vice president of the United States of America. Even though while you were running for president, you actually had to stop running for president because a Spanish sister called you out and put you on blast about the fact that you were locking up your own people. And that you're not black Jamaican, or you're not black Caribbean like you want everybody to believe. We know who you are. You are Indian, and you told people that you don't want to even be considered to be black. Now all of a sudden you need to tell everybody that you went to a black college as if that makes you black. Can white people go to a HBCU? So going to a HBCU don't make you black. It just means you went to that college. And by the way, HBCUs aren't owned by black folk anyway. They weren't started by black folk. They have the same accreditation as the white schools do. So what makes your school different just because you went there and everybody looked like you? What did you learn that was so different? Did they teach you your language? Did you get to learn something as simple as Madase? Did you learn about Euregius? Did you learn about Netchers? I mean, or did you just go there and get the same information, but you can say black people are giving black people the same information? Because if that's the case, once again, we haven't really gotten much out of that. And that's why we still have our sisters thinking that if you would be more like a white man, that you could be appreciated. And our brothers thinking that if you could act more subservient like a white woman, that maybe we should deal with you better. Matter of fact, that's why we'll make excuses to leave. Matter of fact, you're too dark skinned because I don't want dark skinned children. Let me get with somebody lighter. If that includes going to somebody who's not one of us, then so be it. And that's a proper way to look at it, because hey, you don't help the hood, you leave the hood. You don't build a nation, you assimilate into somebody else's nation. You don't worship Elohim, you continue to worship a false god. Because that's what makes us better. Because we keep changing the dream. They keep shifting the goalposts. Somebody not gonna like what I got to say today, but that's all right. I'm gonna say it anyways. I've been sent to give you a truth. Thank you for the love. Right? We keep changing the dream. See, once again, we talked about earlier on the early rising session, we talked about be careful about how they get us to or we chase dreams, but we don't look for the dreams to actually be, completed. So we chase dreams because we never actually look to meet a goal. And we argue against each other as if arguing against each other is going to help us to meet the goal. And we talk bad about each other. As much truth as Cat Williams told and everything like that, that's great that he called a whole bunch of stuff out. Let me be honest, though. Like, hey, and I know he does a lot of stuff for the diaspora. Cat Williams, actually, out of a lot of these celebrities, actually does a lot more than people. But what did that really help that he did? We got some drama. Okay, we know for sure now things that we heard, they're real or they're not real, or some of it's real, some of it's not real, whatever the case might be. Now that we've gone through all that, what did that really get us other than us being able to say that Club Shay Shay got 40 something million views or whatever it got? What did that get us? Now that we finished, now that we came out of it, I wants to say, Keita, now that we done came out of that, excellent, by the way. I watched a lot of it myself. I ain't gonna hold you. Now that we came out of that, though, for real, what's the next move? Now that we didn't came out of it, what's up next? What are we gonna do with this? Is that gonna help us? No shade, right? No shade. I'm just saying. Now that that's out there, everybody's praising at the altar of Cat Williams. Now everybody's coming out. Now Stephen A. Smith is following suit so he can get them views. ESPN, Disney saw that, say, hey, yo, we need to get a piece of that. And you're attached to Shannon. So people will go ahead. They can't wait for you to talk about Jason Whitlock. A little side thing. If some of y'all don't even know what I'm talking about, you might not know. That's okay. But I'm just saying, now's going to be the year where everybody's going to come out and they're going to start saying, see, we're going to put out the drama, right? They were already putting out stuff low key. They were testing it on you, see what you were going to do. And you like Jaguar, what she was doing, by the way, she gave a lot of truth to it and all this stuff. That's great. Now, what is the plan for your nation? What is the dream? What is the vision? What is the dream? What is the vision now for your nation to be built? What does that help with? If darkness came to light, if that's what you're saying, cool, what are we going to do with it? Because if the answer is we don't have much, we're not going to be able to do much with it, then I'm telling you right now, we need to kind of pull back from it. Right? Because it's not helping. Is that going to help you to build your restaurant? Is that going to help you to build your clothing line? Is that going to help you to make sure that you say, I'm going to stop putting so much money into everything out of Amazon and I'll just order something from my own people? What is the vision? Or are we in division? We celebrate division against one another more so than we celebrate love. Right? Another distraction. Just like with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we were literally taught that he said, I have a dream, and people used to teach, then he was shot, and then America got it together. 5 years in between I Have a Dream and Dr. King being shot. By the way, he was shot in 1968. I believe, now I could be wrong on this. I think 1968 is the Summer of Love. Maybe it's 1967 is the Summer of Love, right? One of those 2 years. In the Summer of Love, there were more marches then than there were in 2020. In your mind, you keep thinking that things were all no. Like they lied to us. They're still lying to us. Every state in the country didn't even support MLK Day until 1992. That was the last day. That was the last time that they finally supported MLK Day. Where every state, every country within you think that the United States is a country, it's really a corporation, but fine, I'll just go ahead and play nice for now. We think that every country or every state or this whole country, this whole corporation all said, yeah, we'll just go ahead. King died, and then hey man, we were just like celebrate his born day. A lot of people didn't care about, a lot of them fought against it. Wasn't until 1992. If he died in 1968, do the math, 78, 88, right? 92, that's 4 more years, 24 more years later, and people had to be shamed into it. And still after that, right? Because we can just look at simple stuff in the story of mankind. And still after that, states still wouldn't follow it. You know how we know how simple it is to be able to follow this? You ready? Here's how simple it is, right? You watch this. Arizona, who's supposed to be the last state to bring it in 1992, Arizona wanted the Super Bowl years later. There was a governor of Arizona that was anti-black, right? Which governors of Arizona still follow suit to this day, because that's what a lot of the people there are, anti-black, right? And a lot of the corporations are anti-black and anti-native and anti-colored. So here you have this thing where, and that's why they're anti-immigrant, all this stuff. It's an anti-people of color stance that they take. So they were not going to fall back on this, and they were still anti-MLK Day and all this stuff and this and that or whatever. They wanted a Super Bowl, right? No, hold on, wait a minute. It was either a Super Bowl or maybe it was an NBA All-Star game. Maybe it was the NBA All-Star game. They wanted the NBA All-Star game, right? And the NBA said no. We're not going to give one. I can't remember if it's NFL, NBA. Forgive me. One of them had an All-Star game. Maybe it was a Super Bowl, something like that. They were like, "Hey, we'll put it in your state, right? We'll put it in your stadium and in the city in your state." And the NFL or NBA, whichever one it was, they said, "No, we're not going to do that because their corporations, the people who are advertisers for them, they celebrate MLK to make money off of it, right? And they know that people who are going to pay them will pay them because they celebrate MLK Day. So they put pressure on the sports conglomerate, and then the sports corporation puts pressure on the state. The state eventually then gets rid of the governor, and then when they get rid of the governor, the very next year they say, "Okay, now you guys can have this game." That's recent history. So you can't tell me, right, that everybody just loved on this man when it took people saying that, hey, we're not going to support you guys financially if you don't do it, and therefore somebody putting pressure on them. You can't tell me that everybody loved him, and yet we still had this fight going on. You said Public Enemy March there before that. Okay, cool, right? So we have to realize and recognize that people have changed the dream. Right? Why is it that nobody talks about how MLK said that this is way after. This is closer to when he's going to be assassinated. Why is it that nobody talks about that, hey, MLK said that it's a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by his own bootstrap when he has no boot? Why is it that nobody talks about the fact that MLK said, hey, you know that you guys keep talking about we need to get it together. Meanwhile, we're native here and we're brought over here against our will, but you paid for European descendants to come over here, and you paid them to become immigrants. You paid them to have land. You paid them to be taught how to grow food. You paid them to grow food even if they messed up, and then you paid them for the food that they grew. You went into debt paying your own people because you believed in that much. But when we say support your own, you say that it's wrong. And when we say we should get the same opportunity, you say that it's wrong. Why is that never brought up with King? Because you got to change the dream. If you ever knew that the dream of King was to make sure that his people were taken care of and that we took care of each other financially and that the government stopped half-stepping and took care of us as well, then you couldn't look at King as just some guy that was only about peace. He tried to do that for a little bit. Matter of fact, though, he wasn't following your mindset when he did. He was following a very Indian, anti-black mindset. Not Native American. I said Indian, right? Indian. Who was the person that you see? Watch this. They keep changing the dream. This is why other people have changed in your eyesight as well. Who is the person that King followed to the letter at first. When he was talking about being at peace, he wasn't following a Christian thing. He wasn't following a biblical thing, even though people would say turn the other cheek. That's not what he followed. It wasn't even he had to change back to what his culture was. He actually messed up at first. This is why it became difficult for him. And then he started going back to his culture, and people started leaving him alone when he said, we got to be more about us, right? Even with Stokely Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael broke off for him because at first, even though Stokely Carmichael would ultimately agree with him, he didn't like the fact that he felt King was a little too strong when he started going back. But King didn't follow one of us. He followed Gandhi. That's right. Gandhi, the same Gandhi that when he was in South Africa, right, wrote, and you can still read his writings to this day. They've hidden some of them, but they can't hide all of them. They're all over the place. Go read the readings of Gandhi and what he said about you. Now, MLK followed Gandhi because, like many of us, we were tricked into believing that Gandhi had love for all human beings. But no, he didn't. Right? We changed the dream. Somebody changed MLK's dream at first. And he had to come back to us. He had to come back first to himself, and then he had to make sure that he came back to his people. Gandhi didn't care about all people. Matter of fact, Gandhi didn't even care about all Indian people, because if you know what was going on, you know that there's sects, SECTS, right? And there's 5 of them. And at the bottom of it are the untouchables. The untouchables are the ones they admit to the African ancestry, when the reality is everybody in India is just as African as everybody else in Africa is. How you doing, Musa? Masa? Please forgive me. Or Musa Abdullah? Man, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but of course you can ask questions whenever, right? But see, you got to not allow people to change the dream. How you doing, Big Bad Wolf? Thank you for the love, appreciate you. Right? You got to ask somebody. You can't allow people to keep changing the dream. Yeah, gave them money and equipment to do the land. Yeah, right. And Gandhi, by the way, messing with little girls. Like, this is documented. Gandhi had a wife. Gandhi's wife, like, not the movie Gandhi that y'all saw with Ben Kingsley, who played it, right? Walaikum salam, right? Peace be upon you as well, right? Like he had a wife, and the movie just tells you his wife was there to the end. No, and it tells you it was just this random white woman who was just like a daughter to him. And no, Gandhi had a wife. He was messing around with little girls. He was doing some really deviant stuff, including even like giving them enemas and stuff like that, and sleeping with them buck naked. But he says he only slept with them. He didn't sleep with them. He just slept around them because he was trying to see if he could go ahead and curb the evil and the lust. And so he never gave into the lust, but it was a test for him. This is legit. I'm not making stuff up. Go read, right? A lot of his people don't like Gandhi, which is why one of the people that offed Gandhi was one of his people, right? And I'm not saying he deserved it. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of stuff they don't tell us, right? And Gandhi had a wife, and Gandhi believed in natural medicine, and so did his wife. They didn't believe in going to the hospital like many of us do not. Now, here comes the thing. Gandhi, all of a sudden, his wife gets sick. They're like, hey, the only way we know how to deal with this sickness is to take this type of medicine in the West. He says, we don't believe in that. She says, we don't believe in that. We stand firm, husband and wife. She loses her life. He's supposedly sad and stricken by pain, all this stuff. But they stood on their belief. What can you do about it? They're thankful to whatever spirit that they worship, right? Okay. Gandhi gets sick with the same disease later on. Right? I actually don't have a problem with this if that's your stance, but here's the deal. Gandhi then gets sick with the same disease later on. And Gandhi is given the same choice. We don't know how to do anything with this yet. Either you're going to take this Western medicine or you're going to lose your life. Gandhi says, give me the Western medicine. I know what happened with but your wife, just give me the Western medicine. Right? This same Gandhi in South Africa wrote article after article saying that people who were African deserve death. Now, once again, a lot of us don't know this, including Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., ignorant of this, and we're just he's touted in the story, in his story, as this person that's respected by the English. But people don't realize when you read his South African stories, when he lived there before he came back to India, when you read his South African stories, his South African writings that he wrote, there would be stuff in there like, well, you shouldn't treat us like black folk. Don't treat us like black folk. Don't treat us like Africans. They're dogs. They deserve this. But don't you realize that we're just as much, we're in the same family as you? And he was actually going to Alexander and how Alexander had conquered a lot of places. And the last great Alexandrian empire was in India. And so he was saying, see, the Greeks and us, we're the same. And therefore, you should go ahead and realize that we're the same. Treat us like human beings. Remember what a lot of black people are still saying? We want to be treated like human beings. Black lives matter too. If they still sitting up there saying this and you're sitting up there, you're trying to say, make us humans and we'll suck up to you by beating up. He literally said we should go. This is what he wrote in articles that if you were a great Indian, if you were a great white man, you should walk into the house of the African people whose land you're in. You should walk into their homes and not only do stuff to their men, but you should beat down and off the women and children too. This is the Gandhi that people lift up. This is the same Gandhi. Now, if you're going to lift up that Gandhi, I'm just saying, if you're going to lift up Gandhi Ji, and that's what you're going to do, well, then you got to why are we changing the dream? If his dream was to go ahead and say that my people should be off, then I was almost about to go into an unrighteous place. Forgive me. if his dream says my people should be off, then forget Gandhi and the horse that he rode on too. And I'll honor his wife and tell people that he should have honored her too, instead of going ahead and letting her lose her life. Just say it, right? Like, but they don't tell you this. So people, I literally grew up watching the movie over and over again. I used to watch certain VHSs over and over again before I would go to sleep. I watched Gandhi, the thing on Gandhi, over and over again, over and over and over, to the point where I had that thing memorized. Double cassette, right? Or double cassette. Yeah, it is VHS cassette, right? Double cassette, two VHSs in the box. Used to watch them over and over and over again. Couldn't get enough because he was so righteous. And then everything just about was a lie, because in order to tell the story of Gandhi and not have people be offended, you have to lie about who he was. Right? We keep changing the dream. So when Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. finally realized what was going on, then he said, well, wait a minute, let me talk to Malcolm X. Let me talk to, even after Malcolm passed away, and even though I don't agree with what he's doing, let me holler at sorry, NOI, not Farrakhan, obviously, but Elijah Muhammad, right? Hey, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., hey, let me tell my people, hey, you know what? I fear that I've caused my people, I've asked my people to come into a burning house. He said, let me start talking to my people and telling them, hey, I know we were just saying, let us get jobs and let us ride on buses, but that's not enough. That's not the dream. Matter of fact, remember in 1963, his speech was not the I Have a Dream speech at first, because he was the last of a whole rack of people who had been there all day, who had been marching all day, who had been listening to hours and hours and hours, standing on their feet, most of them, and not sitting down, to all these people who were talking about this stuff, and people were tired, they were ready to go home. And so he's the last person, even though he gave a great speech, nobody really cared about it. And it was Mahalia Jackson that had to yell out and say, tell him about the dream, Malcolm. And he shifted over in the spirit, right? She felt it in the spirit. He shifted over in the spirit and started saying, I have a dream that one day, right? He went into this whole thing, but that's not even what he was talking about. That's not what his speech was about. But all they'll tell you is I have a dream, right? The I have a dream speech is much longer. He gave you the end of the I have a dream speech. He gave you the part of the I have a dream speech that's the hooping and hollering. And I've been to the mountaintop, and I've seen the promised land. He was at the end of the sermon. That was the end of his sermon. He went from one sermon that everybody was kind of like, to all right, because this thing was huge. They had to make sure this went out on the bang. So he's up there, he went, and I've seen the promised land, right? And I might not get there with you, but I've seen it, right? He's telling you about a dream, but that's not even the same speech. Go look at the original speech. You said Malcolm X stopped following Elijah Muhammad? Sure. That's why I said he went to Malcolm X. And even after Malcolm X passed away, he still met with Elijah Muhammad, even if he didn't agree with Elijah Muhammad, right? Exactly. Right. So yeah, I'm with you. But you see what I'm saying? So he went to a place where he was honest. He went to a place to where you gotta be honest. You gotta realize that they changed the dream. They changed the dream. We keep looking at stuff, we're chasing stuff that keeps getting changed. At some point, when are you going to be you? When are you going to come into remembrance? When is it, hey, they didn't just steal a person or even steal what they would say wasn't even a person, less than a person. No, no, no. They stole doctors who were doing the same thing that somebody such as Imhotep might have done, right? They stole lawyers. They stole authors. They stole chiefs. They stole wives. They stole husbands. They stole children. No, no, no. Stop doing this whole thing of, oh yeah, like they do this all the time when somebody when they say so and so committed a crime or so and so, they have to change who they are in your mind. They still do this today. Watch this. If they don't say we went and we killed Iraqis, they say we killed insurgents. Right? I think Cat Williams has even talked about this before. It's interesting. We talking about Cat Williams. He pops up again, right? But they don't say we killed Iraqis. We killed insurgents. And the first thing in your mind is, well, I don't know no insurgents. So I guess that's all right. They took their lives. That's what they do. Yeah, we just dealt with some insurgents today. Oh, okay. I don't know no insurgents. Cool. Do what you do. That's how you've been trained. Yeah, we don't talk about the speech change again. Yeah, that's how we've been trained. Yeah, they lied about God. They said we've been trained. How you doing, Kirsten? We've been trained. How you doing, babe? I'm sorry if I missed you on. How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Maya. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And as always, I don't call her just honorable for the sake of calling her honorable. I call her honorable because she lives a life that's able to be honored. So thank you, babe, for being on. Love you very much. Sorry for missing you coming on. Right? But they've changed the dream so much that we don't even know how to chase the dream. We haven't wrote down visions that are our own, or at least led our own mindset, our own culture. They've changed it. You know, Malcolm's not the only one who had a dream, so did Marcus Garvey. But we don't know it. We don't care about it. You know, we used to walk around in clothes that were the same and outfits that were the same. It was important for us to look like us. Like, that was a big deal. When you talk about Marcus Garvey, part of it was that the aesthetic. We got to look like us. You know, there was an aesthetic. Even if I don't even think I think that we went the wrong way with the aesthetic, even for those who are NOI. I can't sit up here and act like, hey, it was a bad thing. Even if you think that the NOI gave you fables. For some, that's where you are. Like they just gave us fables, this and that, whatever, blah, blah. Hey, at least they gave you something that said this is us. Right? But we keep forgetting, like, you got to be a person. And see, watch this. Part of the dream is about nation building. Nation building is a people. We make the mistake of believing that the word people means a group of person, or is the same as persons. There's person, then there's persons, and then the group of people that are a nation, they're considered to be people. And we are persons trying to fit into somebody else's nation and saying, give us what you owe us. Well, in their nation, they owe you slavery. Because you're not a person. Matter of fact, many of you, if we were to get into this part of it, we don't always bring this part up as much as we used to, but let's be honest, many of you are not sovereign at all. Many of you are considered to be a fake person, part of a fake corporation. That's why you are a straw man. And on your birth certificate, your name is in all caps. And that's why on your bank card, your name is in all caps. You were considered to, thank you, baby, you were considered to be chattel, still to this day. Matter of fact, get arrested. 13th Amendment protects their right to treat you as chattel slave. Even if you haven't been considered guilty yet, you're treated like chattel. Right? I've been there, done that. There was some guy who was sitting up there and talking about, man, I heard him and I made a comment to him, and now apparently he ended up in jail. So I prayed for him. I didn't want this to happen to him, but he was sitting there talking about, man, you talk about slavery and this and that. You talk about somebody having a bond around, a yoke around their neck. He didn't even know what the word was, but a yoke around your neck and having, your stuff chained together. He was like, man, you can't just chain nobody like that. It's impossible. That in of itself is foolish. But I came and I tried to tell him, I said, hey, look, I've been in prison before. In prison for something I didn't do. Been in there though. And I can tell you that I walked around like that, right? Because you a chattel slave. Just because you arrested. Don't even have anything on my record. But they have a right to speedy trial, as I have a right to speedy trial, rather. And in that, they can still deal with whatever they want to do to me for 9 months before they finally have to say, okay, we can't prove that you did anything. Well, you couldn't prove it the first night. You couldn't prove it the first week. You couldn't prove it the first month. You couldn't prove it the first 3 months. You couldn't prove it the first 6 months. You couldn't prove it the first 8 months. It doesn't matter. And they'll have you do while you're in there taking drug tests and doing all, because they're trying to catch you in. Because once you're in the system, they're trying to keep you in there. You are a chattel slave. And what did you do? The answer can be absolutely nothing. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about your religious belief. Doesn't matter if you have evidence to the contrary, right? Doesn't matter. Because you're in there, you're a chattel slave. Matter of fact, when it was the day for me to get out, I had to stay in a little cell that I'm 6'5.5". I couldn't sit down. I mean, I guess technically you could lay down, but I couldn't sit down, couldn't lay down. And I was in there for like 5, 6, maybe even up to like 8 hours. You lose track of time. I know I was in there for at least like 5 hours or so. And I was just in a place where I couldn't even like sit, was tired, couldn't move really. And you stand in there, what they're doing is they're putting your name in a system and they're checking all over the country, right? Sometimes it's international as well, but they're checking all over the country to see, is anybody else looking for you? Because if so, they'll get paid to send you to wherever there's a charge on you, or wherever somebody's accused you of something or whatever, right? And you're sitting in there, you're chattel. You're chattel, right? What about the stories of what's going on in Alabama, where white brother, right, was in there and they had to take out a bunch of his intestines because they have been messing around and putting them in and out of freezers and not feeding them for so long and then giving them bad food when they did for so long that his intestines got jacked up. Messed up for the rest of his life. Still has to serve time in the same prison though. Right? But the dream is supposedly land of the free and home of the brave. But the dream is land of the free, home of the brave. Slavery is supposed to be over. No, 13th Amendment said if we arrest you, now we can't arrest you. 13th Amendment says because you're black. We have to arrest you because we can't enslave you because you're black. We have to enslave you because you're arrested. So there weren't prisons like that at all. And jails were just little tiny buildings. Remember, you've seen them in movies where you saw a little building and there was this one place in the town and the sheriff was there and maybe it had one, possibly two stuff, like on the Andy Griffith show. You might have maybe 1 or 2 cells up in that place, but that was it. It went from that overnight to now we got to arrest a bunch of people so we can put them back on the plantation. They forced brothers to cut off their locks. Right? Possibly. And how you doing, Minister Tamara, if I didn't say so earlier? You said they had the inmates dig graves some people found. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The inmates have been forced to dig graves of other inmates, sometimes forced to dig their own graves, chattel slavery. But this is land of the free, home of the brave. How dare you even insinuate such a thing, Kofi? How dare you? How dare you bring something up? You're a reverse racist. You're the problem because you bring it up, right? Change the dream. I thought the dream was land of the free, home of the brave. I thought the dream was that George Washington never told a lie. Why don't you believe George Washington when he said that he had 2 presidents that were his favorite while he wasn't president yet? But when we tell you that he's the 9th president, you don't want to hear it because you changed the dream. You keep moving the goalposts. You said that's horrendous. Imagine there's some Some that are innocent, not guilty. Yeah. But nobody cares because they're a child of Satan. Matter of fact, you've been taught not to care about those that are in prison, not to care about them because they were on death row. Question: have you ever thought about the fact that they've done research and all these people that are on death row are people that grew up watching their mothers literally sometimes being stabbed or shot in the head right in front of them? There's something like a 90 something percent, like 95, 96% of them literally grew up to where they saw their mothers and their sisters and they themselves would have their fathers like choking them out and stuff like that. Or then go from that to their father's dying and then watching another father figure do that to them or do it to their mother. Now, I'm not saying that's an excuse for them. What I'm saying is you've been taught to have no empathy because once again, it's just an insurgent. It's just a prisoner. It's just a black dude. You know how our people are. That's how we talk about ourselves. You know how our people be. Oh, come on. I know you don't want to hear this. See, they changed the dream. We got to change it back. We got to start changing and taking back power over our own dreams. Kobe Bryant, I was guilty of this. Kobe Bryant, right? Everything was, hey, that girl had 6 types of semen that showed up. They went on a smear campaign. I've heard people try to retell the story. Kobe Bryant was just a rookie when that happened. Kobe Bryant was, when I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, let me go do the research. Because I was like, I remember, I'm old enough to remember Kobe Bryant being a rookie and nobody caring about him his first year. Then the second year, him missing them shots or whatever in the playoff. Then after that, the third year, him doing all right, then winning a bunch of championships, and then him getting in trouble. I was like, hold up, let me see. Matter of fact, I was like, was that the same year that him and Karl Malone were beefing? It's got to be somewhere around 2002, 2003. He was a rookie like 96. Remember, and we were told all this stuff, and the girl and this and that, whatever. My wife and I, we watched a really cringy tape. Some of the words that I will not repeat here. We watched a really cringy tape of or cringy recording of this girl who was done. The stuff was supposedly she's just making stuff up to where she's doing a freestyle trying to get back the power. It's a really terrible freestyle, but that's beside the point. And look at her emotional state. And I just did the whole thing. Well, they're trying to come against a black man, against a brother, and look at her. And I mean, we slut shamed the mess out of this girl. And then I didn't remember this until I didn't recall this until I heard one of the things on one of the videos I was watching as I was going down the rabbit hole. I was like, wait a minute, there was a letter. Kobe Bryant wrote a letter, and this guy even says, like, hey, even though Kobe Bryant just passed away, one of the things that we should look at is there's this letter that he wrote, and it's actually something that's used to be able to teach people about consent. So even if Kobe didn't, even if Kobe didn't outright SA her, do that word that rhymes with tape to her, he still did something without consent and therefore did, even if he didn't mean it, bare minimum. And I was like, hey, there is a letter. Then I looked up the letter. The letter is still on ESPN archives. Funny, nobody talks about it though, right? Even before he passed, because we had gone to this place to where we had made him this little god that people do in sports. And so when I read the letter, I read it to my wife too. And I was like, oh, hold up. Because the letter starts off with, because everybody goes, she didn't show up to the trial. That's why they canceled the trial. No, she knew that she wasn't going to win in the court of public opinion. So she sued him. And in the trial that she sued him. And then, yes, you could say, well, a lot of people do stuff in the stuff that sued him. But here's what the letter says. The letter basically says, hey, in this time from last year to this year, I've gone through a lot. I've grown a lot, but I've gone through a lot. And I can only imagine what she has gone through in this time. Although I don't feel like I did this thing to her, I do comprehend listening to her testimony, learning from her, etc. I do realize that what I've done, that even though what I thought I did wasn't blah, 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 obviously she didn't give consent. And he only did it because he was forced to by law, but he wrote a whole letter. But we changed the dream. Kobe is just some guy who the system was against him, and this white girl just blah blah, and she had all this different type of semen on her, and of course she's a slut. And I mean, we slut shamed her to oblivion. She just wanted his money. Kobe admitted that even if he didn't think that he did wrong, obviously he did wrong. It's on. He recorded himself. It's like an autobiography. I don't have to look to somebody else. Now, am I saying that therefore white tears don't get you certain things? Sure. But what I'm saying is we legit didn't even care about the fact that this girl more than likely had her some kind of fine. We can't say she was innocent. But look, even if there's a prostitute out in the street, a prostitute can be SA too. You see what I'm saying? But we did this thing to where we changed the dream. Kobe became like a lot of white men. He had money, he had power, he had prestige. He was a gladiator. He was in the gladiatorial arena. So we worshiped him as a deist, as a spirit, as a god. And we didn't care about what he did to somebody else. We didn't care that once he finished buying his wife that $4 million ring to make sure that she went ahead and played her role, that he then, after everything died down, he was about to get rid of her too. And then realized it was going to make him look bad. And they changed things up. I'm sorry, would you say Kobe was a sports millionaire? He thought she was nothing. He could get away with it. Yeah. And for the most part, he did. A terrible part. Right. So but what I'm saying is we changed the dream. Are you hearing what I'm saying? We changed the dream to where what is not. The same thing. Going back to Club Shay Shay, Shannon Sharp says something a lot of times that I really think is really special the way he says it. He says you should never. He says the reason why a lot of teams struggle and have struggles that they do. He says is this. He said the reason why teams struggle in the NFL. He said is because people will allow things in a win that you would never allow in a loss. And I think that's like really, really deep. Right? Well, because back then Shannon was not just a girl's name. Shannon still technically is not a girl's name, right? But a lot of people named their daughter Shannon. Shannon, back in the day, if you were named Shannon, especially go back to the 60s, 50s, names like Shannon and names like, a lot of things that we think are girls' names. Like if you were named Shannon, Shannon might beat your tail. If you met a Shannon back in the day, you'd be like, oh, Shannon kind of, right? If you Tracy was another name. Now you think of that as only a girl name. Tracy's back in the 60s. If you met a Tracy, oh, Tracy, he kind of tough. Remember, there was even, forgive me, I'm not trying to like give you a pause-worthy moment. Remember, there's a whole comic strip named Dick Tracy. His name was Robert Tracy. Now you can say his last name was, but Tracy was a name that there was some toughness, right? Stacy, Stacy as well. So yeah, it's once again cultural times, things like that, right? Jamie as well. Matter of fact, there's a guy named Jamie, and he changed his spelling of his name. My friend of mine, he changed it to Jamie because I think they named it when they named it, they spelled it Jamee, and he was like, that's the girl spelling, not the guy spelling. Or even names like Devin, Devin, Devon. There's a lot of different names out there, right? There's a lot of different names out there that it's girls or guys, and then look at the culture where it comes from anyways, right? But Shannon has this term that he says, right? Sean. Sean, I guess is a guy's name. But Shannon has a saying that don't accept things in a loss. I'm sorry, in a win that you wouldn't accept in a loss. And I like that term. I like the way he says that, because what he's saying is that just because you win a game or just because you get out of a certain situation, if there's things in the game, right? So for example, you're a team. This is what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles. This was the main team he has been saying for this year, right? For those who follow sports. I don't follow it as often as I do, but obviously I still follow it enough to where I know what's going on. And he basically was like, kept telling people, man, the Eagles, they're not looking great. He was like, look, I know they're 9-1. I know they're 10-1. I know they haven't lost. And then all of a sudden the Eagles just started losing. But he kept telling people, hey, there's some things going on that you shouldn't accept. Just because they're out here winning, right? Just because they got into the Super Bowl last year, he's like, I'm trying to tell you, it was a Super Bowl champion 3 times over. I'm here to tell you that certain things I see are a concern, right? He was saying like they're not running the ball well. They ran the ball very well last year. He was like, Jalen Hurts is not running the ball well, and he never learned how to really throw as well as we thought he did. He didn't have to throw that often last year, and he threw to people that were open because they ran the ball well. Well, now they can't run the ball. And when you run the ball, the defense, for those who don't know what I'm talking about in sports, when you run the ball well, the defense has to pay attention to the run. When they got to pay attention to the run, it's easier to either get past them because they got to get closer for the run, or they got to think twice about certain things, even when you fake like you're going to run. So they have to, at least for a hot second, pretend or pay attention. Are they going to run it? Okay, cool. Let me try and get back to the defense, or the offense, and the person I'm supposed to be defending, right? So he said they can't run. Their quarterback looks like he's injured. They really don't have any plays. It seems like they lost something when they lost their offensive and their defensive coordinator. He said, and y'all are getting mad at me and calling me a hater. But he's saying you're missing the point that I'm trying to show you, which is there's things they're winning, but if they weren't winning, you wouldn't accept them not being able to run. If they weren't winning, you wouldn't accept that their defense is worse. Matter of fact, remember last year, their defense wasn't that great, but they could sack the quarterback. He was like, this year, their defense is not that great, and they can't sack the quarterback. He was like, remember, you guys talked about Jalen because he could run. He's injured, so he can't run that much this year. And he said, you're accepting things in a win, but that you wouldn't accept in a loss. And he was saying you shouldn't accept it either way, and you should correct it now, even while you're winning, and you should be frustrated and you should be upset with it now, even while you're winning. Even Jason Kelsey, if you know about sports, right? Brother Travis Kelsey, Jason Kelsey came out and told everybody while they were winning, he said, hey, we're not worthy of a Super Bowl right now. We're not great enough. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, they lost to Arizona. They lost first place. They lose in the playoffs. And now everybody's like, oh, okay, now we're going to talk bad about it. But Shannon was getting hate the whole time, telling them don't accept things in a win that you wouldn't in a loss. Because eventually, if everything doesn't break right for you, the things that you're accepting in a win that help things when they don't break, the other things are all perfect aligned. In perfect alignment, he was like, eventually they catch up to you. And sure enough, it catches up. Same thing with our lives, where we are accepting things in what we call wins that we shouldn't accept when it was a loss. You say it's a win because you got better technology. They're still treating you like trash out here. Right? Everything will not always be perfect. Everything will not always be exactly what you want. Matter of fact, some things that you think, because you're not in control. I know you think you're in control, but you're not in control of the weather today. Nobody told you that it was going to snow in Texas today. Right? You know what I'm saying? Remember last year, nobody told you it was going to snow so bad in Texas that people were going to be in the street losing their lives. Don't accept, right? You should have had things in order for snow before it snowed, but it never snows here. Well, if you're not prepared for it, well, guess what happens when it happens? You see that? You hear what I'm saying? Right? Like you're not prepared for it. So now all of a sudden it hits. The levees, you didn't care about the people that lived in that place. So you never took care of the levees. Now all of a sudden New Orleans goes through what it goes through twice over now. In this new century, twice over, you've gone through something in New Orleans because you didn't care about the people. Therefore, you didn't care about the levees. People were telling you about the levees for years. People were telling you about the dams for years. You didn't give a damn about the dams or the levees, and now people had to be damned because of you're not caring about them, right? You shouldn't have accepted it when things were all right, because now when things go bad, what you gonna do? You hear what I'm saying? And we got to have this in our own life. How you doing, fair use? And how you doing? I don't know if I'm gonna say this right, Omika. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. Right? We got to be honest about this. Like, people keep changing the dream. Are you prepared? What happens now? Like, all we've been doing is bus boycotts over and over again, just under new names. All we've been doing is bus boycotts. Trayvon Martin, what did we change? What was the law that came out of that? Bus boycott situation. We don't want to sit in the back anymore. Not our children anymore. We're tired of our children. Your children, now they did it again. You got a new version of Emmett Till that just happened last year. Bus boycott again. And here's the thing on the bus boycott that a lot of people miss. On the bus, right? I can't draw, so forgive me, right? I can't draw. But on the bus, right? I don't even know how you do the thing, so I'm just gonna write who they are. On the front of the bus, I'm sorry, I guess I'm not gonna use the whiteboard too much today, right? I didn't even plan on using it at all, but let me make sure. If you're on Facebook, I'm sorry, you can't see it. You would see it backwards anyways. But on the front of the bus, matter of fact, I need to write it big, write it that big. Can you guys see the whole board? You can't even see the whole board, can you? Okay. On the front of the bus, when MLK was there, you're going to see either, I could be wrong, so I'll just write both. You're either going to see, I'm just going off of my memory, and right now I'm not I can't say that I'm 100% correct. So you're either going to see on the front of that bus, that famous picture, that MLK, a matter of fact, both of them are on different bus companies anyways, but you're either going to see a Coca-Cola or Pepsi on that. See, they changed the dream. Now, Coca-Cola is not racist, are they? Pepsi's not racist, are they? Are they? I mean, Coca-Cola can't be racist. Pepsi can't be racist. I mean, heck, you've had some of your fondest memories of while you're drinking a Coke or a Pepsi, is it not? And I'm not trying to say, hey, if you drink any kind of Coke or Pepsi, therefore you're a traitor to your people. But hear what I'm saying. Why would this be important that we realize that either this or both at different times were on pictures of the buses that everybody said, oh, it's cool that we went ahead and now Black people can be human beings on the bus? Why is it important that we realize that these companies were on the front? Why is it important? Think about that now. Not just indoctrination, but think about the importance. Thank you. They supported the segregation in the first place. That was the advertising. Those were the people that were paying the companies to be on their bus. They didn't care about segregation. You see what I'm saying? They didn't care that you weren't allowed to do this stuff. It's important that you realize that, right? It's important that you realize that when you're talking about World War II, we got it, right? When you're talking about World War II, we got to be honest. And I don't know if I'm spelling these right at all because I don't wear any of this stuff, right? But you got to be honest that this right here is Nazi paraphernalia. Nazi. Right? You got to be honest. The person who made these shoes right here. Well, I can't say this person is Nazi, but this person owns a whole bunch of stock in prisons, which means that this person right here does too. Because he's part of the brand. And they make their shoes in prisons in China and prisons in the United States of America. But we can't exclude the fact that, wait a minute, what about, and forgive me, I don't know how to spell this, so I'm going to probably misspell this. I don't know how to spell this at all. I'll be keeping a buck with you. I think it's supposed to be 2 Ds, right? I probably misspelled this. Forgive me, right? I think it's supposed to be ADD. Either way, Adidas, right? Nazi, right? And then his brother, when he split from him, doubled down on Nazi. Right? Double down on Nazi. Matter of fact, let me just correct it now. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be. Okay? Double down on it. What about this vehicle right here? That was made in places, and Hitler helped to make sure that they had the right assembly line and everything to push this vehicle so that they could use it for war. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? What about if you want to go back to Nazi stuff? We mentioned this company earlier. Let's mention them again. What about Coca-Cola? Right? Coca-Cola was supporting supporting those who were in America and supporting those that were in Germany at the same time in the World War II. Then, when all of a sudden it grew and it became the Axis powers versus what you now call the Allied powers, right? Then once that started happening, they broke it up because they still wanted to make money in Germany. So they broke something together and put something together for Hitler so they could still make money over there because they weren't allowed to ship Coca-Cola products. So guess what they did? All they did was they just put another name on another corporation that was under their original one. And they started making what you now call Fanta. Matter of fact, it was called Fanta back then. They had Fanta apple, they had Fanta strawberry, they had Fanta oranges. Right? It was just actually naturally flavored fruit with sparkling water with it. These are all things, right? We can keep on going. Matter of fact, when you drive on this right here, I don't know if I'm getting too low, right? So let me just go ahead and say what these are. I might be too low. You might not be able to see all this stuff, right? I think you can swipe left to be able to see the full screen, or swipe right, something like that, and you can see everything. But I'll just go ahead and say it. So look, you got Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel, she was somebody who had a little store at the time. The Nazis came through or whatever, and to make sure she can keep doing stuff with her store, she started sleeping with the people that were Nazis, and she was able to keep selling and became Nazi paraphernalia. Nike, somebody who literally has stuff in prisons and stuff like that. In prisons, you forces them to make your stuff. Adidas, somebody that was a Nazi. Jordan himself was attached to Nike. Puma, right, and Jordan products, right? Puma, somebody who's Adidas were two brothers that started together. One brother broke away and stayed high. So people go, oh, Adidas, they made the shoe for Jesse Owens, still a Nazi. And then after he did that, his brother started making Pumas. So when you talk about Riri and all them, Nazi paraphernalia. Volkswagen started off as Nazis. Same families, by the way, still making the same money, right? Did the families change? Did the family dynamic change? Right? Also, too, Coca-Cola products. Coca-Cola, somebody that were serving on both sides, all of a sudden they could only serve Coca-Cola on one side of the battle. They serve Fanta to the other side of the battle. Highways that you even drive on. The highway system was made by Hitler. It was something that they created so they could make sure that things got together so that they can go ahead and move to different parts of the country during war in countries that they were over so that they could always make sure tanks and everything can get where they needed to get to. So now, guess what America does? America lies to the people and says, hey, we need you to spend your taxes and hard-earned money on making sure that we have highways. We want to make sure you can drive around. When the meanwhile is they want to be able to have somewhere if they need to land a plane, if they need to put tanks somewhere, if they need to have Hummers go somewhere, wherever, they have highways. The highways are not even for you. They're for the government. Right? Like these are things that we don't even think about. Right? The highway is not designed. That's why you can't walk on a highway. There's no sidewalk on the highway because it's not made for pedestrians. It's not made for you. You don't ride a bike on a highway. Right? But they changed the dream. You don't even know what to do with the dream. Ford Motor Company, we could add that in too. Yep. I'm sorry, I know I missed some of your comments. How you doing, Jerome Grand Rising? It was Pepsi Cola. Okay, so Pepsi Cola was the one for the ad on the bus. That's what I was saying. I was thinking to myself, it might not be Coca-Cola. Right? Coach too. I'm just saying. So these are things there, and these are BMW as well, right? We can go longer and longer and longer. So I'm just trying to tell you, they changed the dream. They told us all this stuff. Obama owns stocks in prisons. Yeah. By the way, school to prison pipeline is real. Why? How do we know this? Because the same people that own the schools are the same people that own the prisons, and they're the same people that own your music. You ever thought about that? They're the same people that own your food. You said every race has had a moment of time of racism. First of all, racism is a system, right? ISM is a system. If you're going to talk about racism, though, you're just trying to say there are people that don't like people because of the color of their skin and because of the tribe they come from, for sure. And as I said before, any version of that, including slavery, is wrong. That being said, this is the context we're talking about right now. I've talked about, hey, Israelites have racist tendencies, and think about the Esau thing and don't even know that Esau is where Job is, and Job, when he gets his second wife, is married into Dinah. Dinah being the same Dinah that's part of the 12 tribes of Israel. She would be the 13th branch, if you will, but she's not a son, so we don't consider her to be a branch. She marries into Job. So that in and of itself should show you that you should be more worried about the Esau spirit and the Edomite spirit than the actual flesh of it, right? We talked about that literally yesterday. That being said, what are we talking about today? Right? The context today is that we're sitting up here changing the dream. See, and if we change the standard to go, well, all people have done it, therefore we shouldn't bring it up at all. Even if that's not what we mean, we got to be careful, right? Anybody who doesn't like somebody because of the color of their skin is wrong. Anybody, not some, anybody. Right? We got to keep it a buck. Anybody. So if anybody should be wrong about it, anybody we bring up we shouldn't try to figure out, can we manipulate and put it into, no. If Adolf is wrong, right, then Stalin is wrong. If Stalin is wrong, then Leopold, the first, second, and third, especially the second, is wrong. But if they're wrong, then people that lifted them up, including people like Idi Amin, then he's wrong too. And if Idi Amin is going to be wrong, then we got to also bring into the fact that, hey, who else learned from these people as well? Well, and we got to bring up Papa Doc and his son, Baby Doc. And by the way, we're going to bring them up. All of those people I just mentioned, they learned from who? From Charles Darwin and his cousin who wrote the book on eugenics. And what was the name of Charles Darwin's most famous book written in 1859? It is called The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Survival of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life, which means that, hey, he came from something that's Linnaean. Oh, wait a minute. It says Carl Linnaeus. The people who follow Carl Linnaeus are that doctrine are part of the organization that said his book was all right. And Carl Linnaeus is the one that even brought up the term race when he said there were species out there that were in competition. Therefore, there are races of animals because they're in a competition. Well, if those races of animals are there, he said, well, what if human beings come from different races of animals? And there's human race. Human race is. We didn't care about the human race. There was no such thing as a human race because humans, if we're going to be human beings, shouldn't be in competition with each other's humanity. But he said, since we do, we must get that from the animals. And therefore, we are animalistic. And the top animal was who? White. The second animal was red. The third animal was yellow. The fourth animal was black. That's according to him, right? And then Charles Darwin took that book and expounded upon it. And all the people I just mentioned, they go back to Charles Darwin and said, yeah, when I read his stuff, it opened my eyes. And then I started listening to Hitler. And Idi Amin, an African in the middle of Africa, says, I still liked a lot of stuff that Hitler did and started doing things that Hitler did to his people, to others. It's a spirit. That being said, let's not change the dream. Let's not change the mindset. Let's not try to shift the goalpost. Let's not move it back 15 more yards now that we're starting to catch up. Evil is evil. Evil is evil. Right? Evil is evil. Say what you will. This is why people have a problem when we talk about all this stuff, because people are like, how come y'all just try to ignore and act like people didn't do evil? How come you try to ignore and act like, hey, there are not people who are not benefiting from chattel slavery, right? That's why Jordan is a pariah for a lot of us in our neighborhoods. Everybody acts like everybody loves Michael Jordan. People don't love Michael Jordan like that a lot in our neighborhoods. There's a lot of us that are like, yo, man, Michael could kick rocks. Because Michael was the same person that said Republicans wear shoes too. Now, we shouldn't get tricked over Republican versus Democrat. But in essence, what Michael said is, hey, there's a white contingency of people that make a certain amount of money. And I'm not going to go ahead and speak to the negative things that they might do to our people. And people said, oh, we got enough of that. If that's how you feel, right? Then you go ahead and kick rocks. Can you guys hear me on YouTube? Did we lose YouTube? The numbers went down. They don't even tell me anymore when we lose YouTube. It just, the numbers just go down. So I don't know if we lost YouTube or not. If somebody's on YouTube, can you say, okay, you hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you. I mean, we can go into Mao. We can go into a lot of different people. We can go into Korean stuff. We can go into Japanese stuff. By the way, Japan in and of itself, my wife and I were talking about this, the reason why they're so into technology and other things like that, and so into stuff, because they used to be a war-torn country. You were always under your shogun, you were always under your samurai, or the samurais were under people. You were under the samurai as well. Ninjas were up for these people, etc. And so you always were under them. Then somebody won and finally beat all the people in Japan. They started going into China and beating them down. They tried to go into Korea. Korea had one of the greatest generals to ever exist, and this general even learned how to become an admiral when Korea didn't even have any navy, and they were able to beat off the Japanese, even with the Japanese navy being as amazing as it was. And then during World War II, the same Japan will then come right back into China. There's a reason why Chinese and Japanese people don't like each other. And we can consider that to be racism. By the way, China is its own war-torn country that did the same thing. Same thing with Korea. So I'm not here to tell you, oh, okay, well, not everybody, to do the whole thing of everybody's done. Yeah, okay, fine. Everybody that did it was evil, but we're not going to act like every single human being that was there was enslaving people either. Right? We can't do that either, that everybody just enslaved folk. How you doing, Bradley? Thanks for being on. Right? I mean, we can't do so to do that. It's like, oh yeah, well, every race. Well, first of all, before it was called a race, what was it even called? And if you were talking about racism should be a system based off of competition. But here's the deal: if you're talking about racism, well, then racism is saying that there's a competition that's based off of certain people being on the bottom, certain people being on top. Sure. So that everybody in every race that you're talking about and all these competitions, were all their competitions based off of black people on the bottom and white people on the top? Because if not, it sounds dangerously close to all lives matter, which, by the way, all lives do matter and Black lives do matter. But that takes me back to something simple that we started off with, which is if your whole goal is to talk about humans being treated equally, then we already realized that, hey, your goal is too small and that you probably don't really care about big time issues too. If the whole thing is just to always bring everything back to where we're all humans, whether it be treat us like humans or whether it be where we all make mistakes. Sure, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of Elohim. That's what we talked about yesterday. Every single one of us. Matter of fact, no, that wasn't yesterday. It was a few times ago. Romans chapter 3, verse 23. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of Elohim. But it doesn't mean that we're not supposed to obey the law. And if somebody's doing something that's not righteous, call it out. And even if the law is a benefit to us, an advantage to us, Romans 3:1, it doesn't mean that we should start acting like the uncircumcised, and the uncircumcised are circumcised in the heart and acting better than us. It's about a spirit, and we keep moving the goalposts. It's about a spirit. How you doing, Yanni? If I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for being part of the community. A shogun is somebody who's over a whole area. But yes, I believe they're a samurai as well. They're a samurai of samurais in their area, so to speak. Right? So yes, all lives matter. But if all lives matter is the only thing you can say to say, see, if you only bring up all lives matter, I'm not saying even the person did that. All lives matter is something that somebody else brought up in the conversation. All lives matter became something that got really irritating to a lot of us because we were like, you didn't even say all lives matter until somebody said Black lives matter. So you weren't saying all lives matter when Satchel Paige wasn't getting an opportunity. You weren't saying all lives matter when Jackie Robinson was having people put their spikes up in the air. You weren't saying all lives matter when literally people who were veterans and Black veterans came together to march in Washington, D.C., and everybody came against them and tried to take their lives. You weren't saying all lives matter when the KKK is having marches and stuff. You weren't saying all lives matter when it was tiki torches. You weren't saying all lives matter when when you weren't saying all lives matter when Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis are sleeping with their own family members and sleeping with underage girls. It wasn't all lives matter then. It wasn't all lives matter when Jesus needed to be white and his name couldn't be Yahushua anymore. It had to be white. You see what I'm saying? You have to be careful when people keep changing the dream, right? You weren't saying all lives matter when you said, hey, you told us that we were African American. We didn't call ourselves African American. Jesse Jackson was told by y'all when he started running for president, start calling them African Americans in that's 1980 or the late 1970s. We didn't call ourselves African Americans. Right? You started calling us African Americans, and now you come out and say, why do you call yourself African Americans? Just call yourself Americans. But the original definition, the original American, according to law, the original American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. You're not an American. How dare you? How dare that mindset? Elohim forbid. See, this is why, do you hear what I'm saying? This is why we have to get to a place to where we stop listening to a lot of this stuff that's really foolishness, it's craziness. The enemy has us on stuff to where we won't use simple etymology. That's reality, right? We were okay with being Negro. And by the way, look at Negro. Negro was one of the West African words that we use for ourselves. And it was one of the words that they learned in Spain when we were over Spain. And in Spain and in Portugal, where they had ghettos hundreds of years before there was a such thing as a ghetto in or somebody calling themselves a Jew in Europe. That wasn't one of us. Hundreds of years before that we were in ghettos. You can still go visit them today. They still exist today in Portugal, in Spain, and in the Spanish Inquisition. The first people they went against was the Sephardic Jew, who was considered to be somebody who was swarthy, who had locks, who had beards, who kept the Torah, who kept the law, who were really into women. That's their way of saying that, hey, they weren't bisexual at all. They just only dealt with women. They were faithful to their wives, who wore hoodies, who were on street corners, who would and they were forced to wear the hoodies too, but they wore hoodies and they would be on street corners putting poetry over music. Right? Nobody said all lives matter then, though, when the Roman Catholic Church came through and said, you will become Roman Catholic, you will become Christian, you will leave that alone. And then when you start to say that you're the same people, we'll go ahead and say, Kyrie, pay us money so you can play for us again. And everybody will touch and agree on it because all lives matter. The Roman Catholic circus, that's right, because even the word church means cirque or circus. It comes from the same word, right? But if you knew who you were, if it was about all lives mattering, then you would tell the truth about all lives all the time. And if you thought all lives matter, then if somebody said Black lives matter, you wouldn't care. Just like when they said Asian lives matter, you made sure that you gave them law, right? You hear what I'm saying? So we have to be careful how the conversation goes because we don't want to have honest conversation about it. That's just like, by the way, it's interesting people do that and then forget. Didn't we just talk about John Brown? That was either yesterday or day before. Did we not just talk about John Brown and how I said John Brown is a real one and he's more my brother than some of these people who claim to be my brother by blood? Didn't we just talk about him? Pastor John Brown? You see what I'm saying? If we're not careful, we'll allow people to go ahead and act like, hey, oh, no, we're just talking about what? No, see, that's something you got to deal with, the guilt. It's like when we had I'm assuming, I could be wrong, so please forgive me, right? But I'm assuming it was a brother yesterday that we had on, and I was talking about, hey, humbling yourself and being okay with asking stuff and asking prayers a petition. And he said, I don't beg God for anything. It's like, well, first of all, if you can't beg the Most High for something, then you got the issue. You got to work on that. That's humility. Right. Secondly, though, I didn't say beg. I said a petition. Doesn't the word say come before the throne boldly? You have a right as a child of the Most High to come before your father and ask for anything. Right. My son doesn't have to beg me to eat. He can come before me and say, Dad, I'd like to eat da 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 da. He doesn't have to beg me. And if he asks me, he has the right to. He can ask me for a specific thing. Now, if I say no, cool, but he has a right to come before his father and not be ashamed to say, hey, even though you're going to feed me this, I'd actually like to eat this. But that's a humility issue. But see, he's bringing that up. He got to deal with that within himself. Same thing. If I mention white, if I mention black, if I tell you that I don't even believe that white is a color, because white is not. White means clear, it means see-through, it means reflective, it means bright, but it does not mean color, right? If you see polar bear fur, it is clear, right? But you would call it white. If you see your white blood cells, they are clear, they are see-through, but you would call them white. Right. If you see snow, if you're able to catch snow, right, the snow that's all over the parts of the Western Hemisphere right now, if you were able to get that snow and get some of it under a microscope, you would see it be clear. Technically, water is white. The only reason you call it blue is because it looks blue because it reflects. But technically, water is white because it's clear. Like the spirit is clear. So when they mention things that are white, they're talking about it's clear or it's bright, it's reflective, it's see-through. They're not saying that it's a color. White is not a color. It is the absence of, right? Even cauliflower has to have chlorophyll in it. I was about to say melanin, right? Chlorophyll is just nothing more than melanin for plants and vice versa, right? But even it has to, there's no such thing as something that's actually white. Chlorophyll doesn't exist without something of color. There's not a human being, no matter how white they are, there's not one human being that is not without melanin. If they are without melanin, they are not alive. Right? So when somebody's talking about that, once again, though, somebody's changing the dream, somebody's changing the conversation. That's not the conversation. The conversation is not, hey, all white people are evil. The conversation is not, hey, be careful that you're talking about racism because everybody's been racist before. Fine. That being said, we're talking about MLK Day and them changing the dream, and don't let people keep changing the dream. Are we not righteous in our stance to say that they are lying about things having to do with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Are we not righteous to say that they're lying about things concerning George Washington? Are we not righteous to say that they've lied to you about the fact that Abraham Lincoln was the one that actually made Thanksgiving, and that if you look up what Thanksgiving actually is, it's supposed to be a day of fasting? Are they not lying to you when they tell you that hear this now? Are they not lying to you when they tell you that Sephardic Jews can't call themselves Jews when in reality, before there was such thing as a Jew or Judah, it was Yehovah, and we were the people and the chosen people according to the word, and we're supposed to be progenitors of righteousness? Are they not lying to you? That's all. That's what the purpose of today is. See, and if I expect the blessing from a righteous Elohim, then I've got to be righteous in order to expect it. And thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Right. If I need a righteous blessing, and I expect this, that's what we're talking about this year. Hashtag expect the blessing. It sounds nice until you realize that if I expect a blessing from somebody who's righteous, then I've got to be in alignment with that which is righteous. Remember, glory. Remember, glory means the seriousness, the heaviness, the weight, the imprint. Glory is righteousness imputed. There's a print on me. There's something on my life. There's something on my heart. There's something that you can see that says, yes, he's righteous. He doesn't stand the way that others do. He doesn't walk the way that others do. He doesn't just give in the way that others do. He loves his wife differently. He loves his child differently. He loves his mindset differently. He loves his culture differently. He loves his community differently. He loves righteousness differently. He defends it because there's a morality in him that's different. When people say, well, morality is just whatever you want it to be. Yeah, because you're somebody that doesn't want to be moral, because morality doesn't shift. Morality doesn't move. Morality involves character. The letter A is a character. It's a character, whether you call it A, alav, aleph, etc. It is still the same character. We can tell what it is no matter what you're doing with it because it doesn't change. When you try to tell me, though, that A is B, that's when it gets shady. When you try to tell me that A is Z, that's when I got to look at you a little funny. When you try to tell me that Alpha is Omega, that's when I got to look. When you try to tell me that Aleph is Tav, even though he's the Aleph at Tav, but hopefully you get the context. When you try to tell me something that's not righteous, that's when I got to look at you funny, because now you're getting into spells. See, when you spell words in English, they're about witchcraft. See, that's how you can have something that says, hey, this is going to be morphine because it's got an INE at the end, but then you tell me turpentine is something different because it has an INE at the end, right? Some doesn't make sense. We were going over words and etymology with our son yesterday, and I had to admit, I was like, yeah, son, I get it. I had the hard problem learning words when I was young too, because it's really weird when you tell me that it's I before E except after C, but there's more words that follow the E before I after C in the English language than there are words that follow the I before E rule in the English language. But that's because we're under a spell. We don't even have to hold character. In Espanol, if I see I on there, it's E. We're not really gonna mess around too much. Yeah, sure can every once in a while, but it's gonna be E for the most part. Whenever I see it, right? If there's an I, right? We say there's silent letters. Matter of fact, we make fun. I was telling Sister Monica, I was laughing with my wife yesterday, or not yesterday, but the last 2 or 3 days, ever since we went through, and I was telling you guys we were teaching Solomon about fruit, and we were like, it's actually fruit. And I said, my grandmother, my Jamaican grandmother, she used to say fruit. And I used to she'd be, Kofi, give me the fruit over there. And I would make fun of it, but she was right. She was correct. She was righteous. That's exactly how you would say it. Give me the fruit. Because that's exactly what it is. That wasn't an accent thing. That was correct. She kept the character. If that's what it is, don't lie to me. Even if you're saying that I got an accent with it, oh, okay, I'm going to speak the Queen's at the time, the Queen's English. And the Queen's English, that's fruit. Don't lie to me and say that it's fruit. I know how to pronounce letters, right? I might be from Jamaica and I might be this and that, but I comprehend letters, and I know that Fruit is pronounced Furuit, right? Right? Don't spell it for me. She held the character. She said the character, that's what it is. And she was absolutely correct. As I was going through with my son, and I had fallen for the same okie doke and had started saying fruit, I was like, wait a minute. That's not fruit. That's fruit. And here I am thinking that somebody else, because they're coming from a different culture, doesn't know how to do something. But in her culture, you keep it the way it is. You keep it righteous. You see what I'm saying? You keep it the way it's supposed to be. If she's going to speak the Queen's English and she's going to speak it correctly, accent or not, it is going to be correct. Right? And it's the same thing. We have this weird thing that's popping up where it's like, hey, people keep falling for what they're lying to us about King, and what they're lying to us about Shabazz, or who we call X. And they're lying to us about Garvey, and they're lying to us about Evers, and they're lying to us about Nkrumah, and they're lying to us about there's another name I'm looking for. I'm missing his name, Sankara. And they're lying to us about all these different things. And the reality is that we should say no, enough lies, and we will be the keepers, the guarders of righteousness. And righteousness doesn't get to change. And what you did doesn't get to change where you just get to say, well, you know what? We weren't righteous, but y'all weren't righteous either. So we'll just call it a wash. No, if we weren't righteous, we'll deal with our unrighteousness. And if you weren't righteous, you should deal with it. And if you won't call it out, then fine. We call out our own. So we are in a moral position now to call out yours, not to condemn you for it, but we're in a moral position. Remember, even in the Roman road we've been doing, remember, the book of Romans is actually written to the Yehovah leaders, or the Judah leaders, the leaders who are coming out of Judah, who have been sent by Paul and others to teach these people the word. And Paul is trying to teach them, hey, give them a chance to grow, give them a chance to be grafted in. But he says, hey, you guys yourselves are not in a moral position yet to actually call them out for anything if you don't follow the law yourself. If you don't follow the law yourself, how can you tell somebody else how to follow the law? That's what he's saying. So we can't allow people to keep changing this stuff up, and we don't keep it ourselves. We have to keep this. One of the greatest tricks of the enemy is not just to get you to believe he doesn't exist. One of the greatest tricks of the enemy is to get you to believe that you're not supposed to keep things true. This is why it's hypocritical, hypocritical even, right? Because hypocrite is hypocrite, right? If you're hyperglycemic, your levels are too high. If you're hypo, it's too low. So a hypocrite is not just somebody who stabs you in the back. A hypocrite is somebody that lives beneath the criteria that they set. So it is hypocritical for us to say that we are righteous in any way, we have any moral fiber and any moral value, even to our own community, and we can't call out unrighteousness. We don't get to put out criteria and we're going to live beneath it. I mean, you can just realize you're a hypocrite. You're right. You can just realize you're hypocritical. That's all. I'm not trying to say that you're a bad person, right? But you might be a hypocrite. You might want to fix that. If you say, I want to be great towards other people, but hey, when my people did something evil, well, I can find evil in your people. So let's just stop talking about the evil that my people did. Then you need to leave my people alone. And you probably should leave your own people alone because you're a bad example. I know I did this is when it's tight, but it's right. This is when I get people that don't like what I'm saying. This is when people gonna think I got a big head. This is when people gonna call me a reverse racist. And you know what? I can empathize, but I don't care. Because when you literally are still, by the way, making sure that you go into the wombs of our young girls and are making sure they can't have children. I'm not talking about, which is still wild to me, this part, but I'm not just talking about, they're going through health issues. And so to make sure their health issues are okay, we'll just put them on, forgive me, sisters, I'm having them on contraception. We'll just give them, pills and stuff like that. And now they're gaining weight and we're like, well, we don't know why they're getting so big. Well, the pill makes them big, but I mean, at least we're regulating this, and they got fibromyalgia. So one of the ways we'll deal with fibromyalgia is make sure they can't have children, right? Craziness. But even if that, because sometimes, fine, maybe you have a righteous intent. I would doubt that. It seems like you're making money off of it. I'm talking about when you had people that couldn't read or write and you had them sign in X's, and then you would go into their homes after they signed in X's. And when their daughters were of a pubescent age, you would take them to hospitals and you would make sure that they couldn't have babies ever. So they never even had a chance. Before they even lost their virginity, they never had a chance to see if they could actually be impregnated. Right. And then when that's mentioned, you say, but everybody was racist. Well, okay, fine. Tell me the African nation that used to go around to Europeans and make sure that they took out their daughters' wombs. Right. I don't want to really compare, but see, if you put us in a position where we have to tell the truth, fine. We got to compare truth against lies. Fine. Tell me the group of people who went out, right, and that were African and went into other nations, right, and decided to make sure they took out the wombs of other people so that they couldn't have children. Oh, sorry. Right. When we get there, then we can start comparing. If we're gonna do this whole, well, everybody was racist thing, then fine. And what were the consequences of your racism? Because that's what you guys tell me, right? Don't you guys say, what's that term that they use? Isn't it that you say that you have to be able, this is not the term, but you have to be able to write it down, right? It can't just, it has to be observational. It has to be, what is it that you would call it? What is it that you would call it? Whatever you call it, you have to write it down. You guys always say you got to write it down in order for it to be science. Right. Qualitative data. Qualitative data. That's not exactly what I'm looking for, but that's close. Right. Documentation, sure. But let's just say it has to be qualitative data and quantitative as well. Fine. Let's do the quantity and the quality, shall we? Show me how many African nations based racism, this racism, you want to throw this term out there, fine, based racism off of color. There are some. I can actually probably tell you more than you could tell me. To be honest, I could probably make your point better for you than what you could make it for yourself. But let's just go down this road. If this is where we need to do for some reason, show me. Right? If that's what you say you have to have it in writing, then find it. Because it's interesting you want to write or have all these theories on stuff, including even like what is it, the something savage theory, where basically the savage something theory, where basically, oh yeah, there's this thing where all these savages, all these Native American groups, that they call them literally savage, which means wild, which means they don't fit into your society. You say there was this false thing that every Native American was a great Native American and all white men were all evil, when the reality is white men were bold and they were brave enough to be able to go through and conquer all these other people and take their land. They were heroes, and the natives were actually really savage. Okay, show me the quantitative and qualitative data for that outside of a theory that you made up, you doctored. You gave somebody a doctorate to write some foolishness. How you doing, Yasalman? How you doing, T's 2 cents? Show it to me, right? I'm just saying, if we're going to have that conversation, then give me something. Where is it? Show me the documentation outside of your theory. I'm serious. Show it to me. Show me the person in Africa. Idi Amin tried to follow the blueprint. I told you he's evil. But show me the place where Idi Amin did to a group of people because of their belief system, right? On the level of stuff that Adolf Hitler did. Where literally, watch this. They came to concentration camps. Companies like Bayer, Bayer. Companies, once again, another company still in existence to this day. Bayer, German company, I believe, came and said, hey, we need 250 women. No cap. We need 250 women from your concentration camp. We need to experiment on them. By the fact, don't give us the women that have been there. We need 250 healthy women to experiment on. Sure, no problem. Paid for it, everything. Gave it to us. They write back. There's another. You can read these letters, right? They write back a letter. They say, oh, we're thankful. Thank you so much for allowing us to have these women come. Unfortunately, none of all 250 healthy specimens that you have sent us, none of the 250 survived our initial testing. We need 250 more. Okay, show me the African nation that did that. If we're going to compare, you see what I'm saying? We got to be careful with this. Now, I'm not trying to say once again that evil ain't evil. At the end of the day, if we had some of our own that were selling some of our own as slaves or whatever, that's despicable. But let's stop getting into this place to where you're just trying to be like, well, everybody did evil, therefore we shouldn't call out evil. If evil is evil, then call it out. Don't be ashamed of evil, right? Or matter of fact, be ashamed of evil enough to where you will call it out. But do not be ashamed of the interpretation of the word of Yah. Paul says, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed to be in righteousness. If you're in righteousness, then unrighteousness can't stick around. As we talked about earlier this rising, if you're on your way, right? If you are chasing the dream, right now we're talking about changing the dream. But earlier in the early rising Bible study session, we talked about chasing the dream. And if you're going to chase the dream, you can't have stuff that holds you back from chasing it. If you're holding on to stuff because you're afraid of letting go of evil, well, then how far are you going to get in righteousness? I don't know exactly all the experiments that Bayer did. I'm just telling you the letters that I've wrote. That have been written and that I've read. I'd have to see what's there. There's a lot of people that have done a lot of evil. Shaka himself, who everybody gives credit for building the Zulu people for in Zululand, and he deserves a lot of credit. And those people were able to fight for the freedom of their people. A lot of credit given, but don't forget that Shaka himself, especially after his mother passed, was wiping out everybody if they didn't agree to everything that he said to become a Zulu. So a lot of people that are Zulu actually didn't start off as Zulu. We know that there's evil. I'm not here, but I'm saying we should at least call it out. If somebody were to tell me that about Shaka Zulu, I would say, yeah, that's part of his story. If somebody were to say, well, you guys enslave each other too, and blah, blah, I would say, well, you know what? I'm Cherokee. And when we did the Trail of Tears, some of my ancestors actually were the enslavers of some of the other ancestors until they finally had to give up their people as slaves. And then they actually started marrying into each other. And so now we're the same people anyways, right? Like, I'd have to admit that in the story. And guess what that does? That frees me up from being a hypocrite. And it frees me up into righteousness now because I have disavowed it. If you were part of my family and you enslaved another part of my family, you were wrong for it. Period. And if you were part of the family that was that enslaved my family, but then gave up to say and then said, you know what, I'll realize you're a human being just like me, and I'll marry into you, that you were righteous for it. It makes it a lot easier for me to not be a hypocrite. Like we talked about before, what are you attached to? TD Jakes, your issue is not even, let's say TD Jakes, because all of that is alleged anyways. Let's say that he didn't do, because I don't know what he did or didn't do. Some of it is obviously exaggerated, but here's where you messed up. You got close with people that were jacked up. You got close to Tyler Perry, and we know what his life is about. We got close to John Gray and allowed him, Pastor John Gray over there in North Carolina, and you got him, allowed him to keep doing the stuff and not have to take accountability for what he did to his wife. And now you're involved with it. You got to attach to all these different people. You had the guy who was the homosexual cop who was on there. And look, I'm not talking about homosexuality. I'm just talking about the fact you had him on there dancing and doing stuff and smiling about it and allowing him to do things that are the opposite of the word of Yehovah, right? Now, after all that, guess what you didn't do? You caught with Diddy. You didn't realize that Diddy might have been into some crazy stuff. Maybe you did, but let's just assume you didn't because it's all alleged. At the end of the day, once you got close to him, now because you wouldn't say I should be separated from Diddy, now we got to figure out did you or didn't Diddy or didn't he, right? You got close to Diddy, now we got to figure out did he or didn't he. You didn't have to be close to him though. You didn't have to be right up on him like that, right? But now that he's going down, anything attached to him is going to be doubted. Anything attached to him, anybody that knew him, anybody, watch this. Here's the thing that nobody talks about with Diddy. See, we keep changing the dream. We keep changing and moving the goalposts. Here's the reality. Anybody that knew that was going on, stop telling me, oh, well, I was one of his bodyguards. I was a bouncer at the club. I was this and that. And I saw them and I can tell you this. Then why didn't you stop it? Right? Like separate yourself from that. I'm just trying to let you know, separate yourself. When all these people come out, right? If you're going to put something in the comment section, ask them, why didn't you stop it? Right? If you knew what they were doing to Aaliyah, right? Dame, Jay-Z, with R. Kelly, all the people that made money off R. Kelly, how you gonna come on later and talk about and come on in this show, in this series, right? Surviving R. Kelly, and you were the one that gave your child up and offered him up or offered her up, sometimes even him as a sacrifice. If you didn't stop it, don't say nothing. If you can tell me everything that happened, but you still kept getting paid, then that means you didn't stop it. Even if you felt guilty about it, you didn't stop it. You attached yourself to it. Just because you got a lot of money out of it doesn't mean that's an excuse. Well, my family wouldn't have survived. You think the Most High wouldn't have blessed the fact that you walked away from wickedness to remain in righteousness? How you doing, Frida? How you doing, Michelle? How you doing, Leonard? You see what I'm saying? Like you are in an unrighteous position. If I didn't say so earlier, how you doing, Tamara? Yeah, guilty by association. We talked about this before. Remember, we talked about you can be an accessory. That we maybe this is 3 days ago or so, something like that. But we talked about you can be an accessory to a crime. Matter of fact, this is a long time ago. Remember, I was saying this is an accessory, right? This is my hand. This is my body, right? This is the person. Here's the accessory. Here's the person, right? This person, right? This person, and I know it's going to be backwards for you, whatever, but just, this person right here, right, could write something on the board, right? I can write something on the board, right? And you can see it, right? But right now, there's no accessory. But if I were to take the same hand, right, and write something on the board again, forgive me, my cursive is terrible. I don't know why I decided to do cursive, but it is what it is. Right? Sorry about that. But if I were to decide to go ahead and write something on a board and I have this on, then this is an accessory. It's attached. Just because it's attached, there's guilt attached. Right? Just because there's something attached, there's guilt attached automatically. Automatically. It's an accessory. You can be an accessory to something just because it's attached. Right? That's all an accessory is you're attached to it. And then they come and they say, hey, we need you to testify, right? And if you don't testify, you won't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help you the most high. And what do? They say that now you've gone from testify to now you are an accessory. Now you are guilty by association. Now we got evidence that you were there. Just tell us what happened. Right? You might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. You literally just might have been in the wrong place. That's all it could be. You just were in the wrong place. You were in the car. You didn't know that your friend had 17 bags of weed on them. We caught them. They had 17 bags of weed. They don't have a license to sell. Right? We haven't. They're not allowed to ship it in this way. You just happen to be in the car. No problem. Will you tell the truth? And most of you, what you would do because you were taught to be about the streets and to be taught about the world rather than to be taught about to keep the things of the kingdom. What will you do? You'll say, no, I'm not a snitch. And here you are now, right? There's somebody that might go in and snitch on you or lie on you and say, hey, you were involved, so they might get less time. You'll keep up your honor. And then after you find out they snitched on you, you'll still keep your honor so that you can come out 10, 15, 20 years later and say, see, I wasn't no snitch. And you'll lose what the Most High has for you and then say, well, you know what? He respects the fact that I didn't lie. Sure, he respects it, but he probably would have respected that you didn't lie in the beginning and just told the truth. But you trying to keep the code of the street rather than keep the word of Yah. And you were more afraid that somebody would call you a snitch. Now, I'm not saying we should just automatically be calling police on everybody. There's levels to it. But hear what I'm saying. You have been taught that it's more important to go down for unrighteousness than it is to be in Jehovah and be there for your family and have the children that he promised you for righteousness. Right? I'm here to tell you straight up. You can think that I'm a bad pastor for this. I promise you this. I promise you this. Don't bring to me any unrighteousness. Don't try to get me involved in breaking any laws, right? They already got people looking at us because we say that we're Israelite, right? Don't get me into, hey, I'm gonna be doing this and that. Y'all are doing stuff to women. Y'all are selling this. Y'all are doing that or whatever. And you think that I'm gonna just go ahead and jump in. Because I promise you when I find out about it, I'm separated. I promise you, because there's too many people attached now. It's not just me. It's not just my family, which is enough for me to make that decision. But there's too many people attached to this thing. We're moving too fast. We're doing too much righteousness. We're about to have too much people living together. We have too much food that's about to be created. We have too much business opportunities. We have too much stuff to where we're spreading around the world. I can't allow somebody to come in here and be like, oh, well, you know what? To make sure that I protect so-and-so, I'll go ahead and throw away what y'all has. Doesn't make sense. But that's what you've been taught. We'll throw away your family. We'll throw away your children because, hey, at least I didn't snitch on my boy who didn't tell me that he put the gun in my backpack in the first place. This is what we sound like. Matter of fact, this is not what we sound like. This is who we become. They have changed the dream. The dream is what? What is the Most High giving you as a dream? Whatever he's given you as a dream, he did not give it to you so that you could squander it. And anybody, including me, anybody who tries to come take you away from the dream of the Most High, they're not worth being in your life. Now, I didn't say that you can't have somebody tell you about yourself from time to time. You need to take constructive criticism. But hear me when I say that you are not going to stop what Jehovah has given me. If y'all decides to allow me to let me go to prison, so be it. But it ain't going to be because somebody ain't doing righteousness. You feel me? You feel me? Right? You feel me? Right? You're not going to have me out here because you can't get yourself together. Right? If I got to go and he tell me I got to go, that's one thing. Okay, I got to go. But if I go because I'm trying to make sure that I lie for you, that's not righteous. And you shouldn't ask for me to do that anyways. Right? I've already decided if I got to go to prison for speaking the truth, I'll go. That should be enough for somebody to say, okay, cool. Right? But for you to say, hey, if I mess up, you go ahead and take the hit for me. Right? Christ already did that for you so that you wouldn't have to do it for anybody else. And this is ultimately what people are trying to tell us to do. Thank you for the love. Hey, stop talking about racism. Don't talk about what happened with this. Don't talk about my shortcomings. Don't talk about the government. Don't talk about the church. Don't talk about no. Like, we ain't doing what happens in this family stays in this family. That's where a lot of y'all are now. Some of you have been essayed by your own family members, and it's your own parents that told you to shut up and don't say nothing about it. You know how Uncle so-and-so is. And here you are still dealing with the issue today because somebody said, shut up, don't be a snitch. We keep talking about snitches as if they're only dealing with prison stuff. Some of us are still dealing with people to where we should have snitched on them a long time ago. We should have beat them down in the family. The family should have, fine, if you're not going to let the police do it, the family should have beat so-and-so up. Uncle so-and-so should have been beat up by the family. Aunt so-and-so, auntie so-and-so should have been beat up by the family. Your church, your assembly should have came together and knocked some sense into so-and-so to make it clear that you aren't going to mess with these minors. This is the issue we're dealing with. Some of our sisters and brothers still dealing with this stuff. Can't talk about it. Can't be in a regular relationship. Not just, I'm not even talking about husband and wife. I'm talking about can't have regular friendship because they're afraid to look people in their eye. They're afraid to, when I listen to people talk who were abused quite often, and I hear the shakiness in their voice when as soon as we get to a certain part of the conversation, they become little children again because we didn't protect the wife and the husband and the child. We didn't protect the grown man and the grown woman and the child. So here they are still stuck. And we keep on moving the goalposts. They keep changing the dream. Your child had a dream that was pure, and we allowed impurity in. And rather than help with purification, we said, stay impure because we need to protect the family. What kind of garbage is that? Stuck on stupid. Why would you want your child stuck? Say, yes, that's how family rule. You mess up and the whole family get involved. Yeah, mess around with our family. Our family don't even get along like that. Right? My side of the family don't even get along like that. Mess around with somebody in there, see what happens. I might have to talk to you for 10 years. Promise you, don't mess around with you, see what happens. It should be us. It should be us. Now, when I say they're changing the dream, they're changing what you're chasing. So why not just start chasing what Yahweh told us to chase? Let's just take out the middleman because the middleman ain't working. Yah said we are responsible for teaching this. We are responsible for teaching what a blessing is, teaching what expectation is, teaching his will and being connected to him being the door, him being the way, him being the truth, him being the life. Okay, fine. That's what he's supposed to be. That's what we're supposed to help people to become. He who wins souls is wise. Let's start winning souls and the psychology back, the nachivas back, to ensure that our people are in the proper position. No longer is somebody else going to be our standard when they don't even care about us. And if you don't care enough to be grafted in, because at the end of the day, guess what? We are in righteousness. So in order to become where we are, you got to be grafted into us. It's not the other way around. It's not the other way around. I will humble myself as you come in so I can accept you even what you needed to come as yourself, but come as you are so that you can be grafted in. You're not going to stay another tree because you got to know the tree by the fruit it bears. And the fruit doesn't bear righteous fruit if it's not connected to the righteous tree. There's only one tree of righteousness. I'm sorry to tell you, there's not a whole bunch of righteous trees. There's one tree of righteousness. There's only one type of fruit. And that fruit has to come with 9 pieces. It's not the fruits of the spirit. There's one fruit. And there's one fruit, and that fruit has to have love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, being like Elohim, faithfulness, meekness, and temperance. If it's missing any of the 9, it's not even connected to the right source. We're not chasing unrighteousness anymore. Right? The tree of knowledge of Tabah and evil, all of us got to deal with that now because we ate of it. But the goal is to get back to the tree of life. If it has no life, it has no right. Not in here. Now, if you want to go ahead and be lifeless, stay out there and be lifeless. And that sounds mean, but that's how you got to do. How do you keep something if you won't protect it? At some point, there's got to be some kind of hit, some kind of what you would call chet, some kind of wall, some kind of separation that protects the sheep. And anybody that comes through the door any other way but through the door, through Christ, they are a thief. Is that not what your Bible says? Tell me if I'm lying. Check out your Bible, read your Bible, it'll bless you. Does your Bible not say that anyone who tries to come in to this any other way than the door, they are a thief? If you can't come in the way that's been designed, there's only one way in and one way out. That's for security measures. That's for lawful measures. Thank you for the love. That's for security measures. There's one way into this. There's going to be one way out of this. And if you can't follow the way, the truth, and the life, and the door, and the bread, right? If you can't follow this one way in or follow this one way out, then you are a thief. Because only thieves are looking to get in through ways that aren't. Sure, you might lock yourself out. I've done this before. You might lock yourself out the house one time, and you might have to go ahead and lift up a window, maybe even break a window, or find some key that's in a really weird place that makes people look at you really weird for going around your house. That happens from time to time. But real talk, right? Real talk. Let's just keep it a buck. Real talk. Most of the time, people getting in the house, they're coming in an actual entrance, right? We're normally not going to climb through the window if we're allowed in the house, right? And people keep trying to tell you that they're trying to get in. They're trying to say they can get into us anyway except the only entryway. Think about this. They're trying to say they should come into our house through windows. They should come through our house backsliding. They should come into our house lying. They should come into our house changing who we are. They should come into our house telling us that we're not acceptable. Come into our house telling us that their dirtiness, it should be the standard for cleanliness. You don't get to come in and tell me how it isn't. You got to be somebody who comes in the door. If you don't come in the door, it means that you don't have a key or you didn't ask for access. If you didn't ask for access, you're trying to appropriate it. And I'm not appropriating here. We are inappropriate. We are not allowed you to take what's ours and say that it's something else. We are inappropriate in here. And we are sealed. Israel, Revelation chapter 7, must first be sealed. Don't let them keep moving the gates on you. Or don't let them keep moving and changing the dream on you. Don't let them keep shifting the goalposts a little further down and further down next time and further down next time and further down next time. No. It's righteous or it's not. It's true or it's not. This is why it does matter about skin color, because the Bible says it does. And if it does, then it didn't. If it's only, watch this. If there's, I'm just guessing right now because I don't even know. Let me do this real quick. Let me look up something real quick. And I'm not going against anything I just said. Let me just ask a question. Let's see. How many words are in the Bible? I know that's not all of them. It's going to give us the 66 books. Okay. This says that there are 700. Oh, wait a minute. King James Bible that we use today, it says there are 783,137 words. You can't take 10 words describing his color, but there's 783,137 words. Where am I headed with this? If you can't handle his color, does not your Bible say that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word? Doesn't the Messiah say that in Matthew chapter 4 before he gets into the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5? And he says, it is written, he's speaking against the devil. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. Why can't you handle every word? If you can't handle these 10 words, how are you going to handle 783,137 of them? Come on, somebody. Every word. And that's just after 66 books, right? In the King James Version, the modern King James Version we use now, right? If you can't eat if you can't eat the whole scroll, if you can't handle a crumb, I can't give you the bread. If you can't handle the milk, I can't give you the meat. Every word. You get messed up because somebody mentions color. Your Bible mentions color. Why are you upset? He didn't care about color. He wouldn't have mentioned it. Do you believe in every word or not? See, this is when we got to figure out. See, once again, you're changing the dream. You're changing the word. I can't allow it. I can't allow it. The more I allow it, the more I allow it, the less credible I am. And I'm incredible. Oh yeah, somebody ain't like that. See, you got to talk heavy about yourself sometimes because the enemy will try to make you feel down. No, no, no. When it comes to this walk, baby boy, baby girl, the kingdom that's in me, it has allowed me to have been deemed and redeemed as incredible. I once was nothing, but now I'm nothing but credible. Matter of fact, the Most High says that He loved me enough to allow His Son to go ahead and give His life for me. I'm incredible. So there's no way I'm going to allow you to take away from my incredibility. You need to take that somewhere. You're not going to shift the goalpost. You're not going to tell me that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said is a lie. It came out of his own mouth, and then tell me that you're going to shift it. You're not going to sit there and tell me that I didn't watch on television as you. No, I wasn't there at the time, but I've watched this since, right? That they have television shows to where Mike Wallace and others are sitting up there being like, well, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. died. Which one of y'all going to go ahead and tell y'all people to shut up and get back in line? Literally saying that on television. But you're going to tell me that I'm supposed to watch them on 60 Minutes? And that's supposed to be something. No, you're not going to do that. I am incredible because His word has made me credible enough to be considered to be incredible. So if I'm incredible, in order to keep up the credibility, I've got to call out the truth. And so if it mentions something in 10 words that you can't handle, how in the word are you going to handle 783,000 plus? I think it's 783,187 words. If you can't handle 10, how are you going to handle 783,187? Right? You talking to the wrong person. If every word uttered out of his mouth has to be followed, then that's every word. If every word out of his mouth, then I don't get to change it. If He says eschew evil, then I got to eschew evil. If He says, watch this, Esau is the end of the world and Israel is the beginning of everything else, then I've got to believe that Esau spirit is going to be the end of this system, but everything else that comes afterward is going to be something that comes through Israel. I've got to believe it. If He says that if the Messiah shows himself in Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15, and it says specifically that when He came, he had woolly hair, right? And he had feet that looked like they had been, like it was not brass. It was it brass? No, not brass. We don't have to look it up. Somebody look it up for me. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment. Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. His feet were the color of not brass, of was it burnt brass or bronze? One of them, but one of them that had been burned in the furnace. And if you don't know what burnt brass or burnt bronze, either way, looks like, it looks black, like it looks blacker than my hair. That's what it says he looked like. By the way, that would make sense because he was hidden in Kemet. If he was hidden in Kemet, then that's a truth. And it's not trying to tell you that because it's trying to say he's better than you because of the color of his skin, because melanin, but technically by science, is never measured from the outside in. It's always measured from the inside out. There is a possibility that somebody lighter skinned than you, right, can have more melanin inside of them, right? There's a possibility you can have a child, right, that is lighter skinned than you, even if both parents are melanated on the outside, right? You said it's not what it says. It doesn't say that he had feet. Well, then you're somebody who's lying, right? You're not going to tell me that the Bible doesn't say he didn't have hair like wool. And you're not going to tell me that the Bible doesn't say that he doesn't have feet that were burnt, whether it's burnt brass or burnt whatever. Thank you, babe. Burnt brass. I'll take my wife's word above yours. So, like I said, if you're going to be somebody that's lying, then you just lie, right? If you're going to tell me that's not what the Bible says, you're not going to tell me that he wasn't hidden in Kemet. And that's where they found him. And that's where Joseph took him. I'm sorry if you want to say Egypt. Egypt is a modern term, but Egypt is actually something that's more Greek, right? Because Cleopatra was not Kemetic. She was Egyptian. There's a difference between the two. And an Egyptian is not a Kemetic person. Back then, he would have been hidden in Kemet, right? With Kemetic people, even if it was Egypt at the time. Now, I'll give you credit because you're not going in the right place. You can say it was Egypt at the time, but the people who were Egyptian were not the people who lived there around. The people who lived around were still Kemetic. Go and look up the history of Julius Caesar. Go look up the history of Mark Antony. Go look up the history of Cleopatra herself at the time. Go look up the Ptolemaic dynasty. I'm not going to have somebody who's not going to at least study to show themselves approved. Cleopatra was dark-skinned and still wasn't Kemetic, which should show you that Greek people were not white. By the way, once again, there's no such thing as a white person because the color white doesn't exist, because white by definition is clear, bright, see-through, reflective. Look up your white blood cell and tell me what color it is. Look up the white snow and put it under a microscope and tell me what color it is. Right? You don't get to be the standard, especially if you're going to live in a lie. If you're going to have Dunning-Kruger effect, then you're not able to have disciples. If you are, have them out there to where you can live in lies. But here, I have sight. I am the light, and blind doesn't lead people that can see. People who can see lead the blind. I've helped at places before where people who are blind are trying to get help, and they're putting technology and stuff together for people like that. And blind people don't ask other blind people to help them outside when they need to get to their transportation. They ask for somebody who can see to help them. So if you're blind and you can't even read your Bible and see specifically, it's saying the color of Christ's feet and telling you the texture of his hair, then you're not even in a position to tell me about the other 173,000 plus words. Because man should not live by bread alone, but by every word. You don't think he was right? Okay, Middle Eastern. When did the term? Okay, watch this. Moderators, if you don't mind. Moderators, the moderators are in charge. So if they do something to you, I'm asking the moderators permission if they don't mind. I'll give you your couple minutes of fame. I can't give you 10, 15 minutes today because we're running out of time. But I'll give you a couple minutes so you can go ahead. We can do this, right? You said, I don't believe. First of all, your belief can't be based off of, if it's not based off of actual factual things, then they're feckless, right? We're not going to put feelings in them. Okay? So watch this. If we say that we're going to go there, right? Let's go there. I believe they're Middle Eastern. When did the term Middle Eastern even show up? And by the way, if you go to Israel, you know that when you go to Israel and you're facing what you would call Egypt today, when you face it, there's a big sign there that says that, hey, because of the platonic, the platonic nature of things, the literally the plates and where they are, it will tell you that you were still in Africa. But when did the term? It'll still to this day. But once again, what right? When did the term Middle Eastern come into existence? Do you know? You have to ask you, right? Because when was there a middle of an east? East is a direction. So you got to ask yourself, when did the term Middle East come up? That has to do with colonization, not to do with the history of anything. When did Middle East? When did something become Middle East? Do you even know? You don't have to Google it. I mean, you can Google and Google, but you got to look. So watch this. So sometimes you'll see 1900s, and they're more than likely the mid 1800s, when Britain, Great Britain, who said at one time that their empire was so vast that there was not a time during the day that the sun went down on their empire, right? Okay. So when you talk about the Middle East is like this. England said if you're east of them, you're east. They said if you were far east, you were in the Far East. If you're in the middle, you're in the Middle East. The people who lived in the Middle East at that time, by the way, are not the same people that lived there that you're talking about in the 1940s, right? It's not to the 1940s that you have, by the help of the Allied powers, the UN, England more specifically, because they're actually losing their hold on Israel, and they're helping the transition to allow Jews, Khazarian Jews, and mostly Ashkenazi Jews to be able to come over that way, right? And also, we don't talk about the fact that you got to talk about the Rothschild family, because it's a Rothschild star on the flag. There's no such thing as a Star of David. I'm not even telling you nonsense. I'm telling you, like, you will not find in your Bible, in the Apocrypha, anything about the Star of David, right? No such thing as the Star of David. So the people in the Middle East are not people who were even there. Now, here's something else. Go on YouTube and look up early 1900s, early 1800s Israel. And when you look at the people that are there, you tell me what color they are. Now, we could say that maybe they were already scattered, but some of them still live there. But we're not even talking about Palestinians. Palestinians are not the people we're talking about at this point. We're not talking about the people who are fighting Hamas versus Israel and all that. No, we're talking about the people that were there still way before. Look up 1920s, 1900s, 1800s, and there's recordings. You said just seems anti-Semitic? Sure, even though I'm Shemitic and my tribe, West African, is considered by Israel, even the people who don't like me and people like you who don't like me, they consider me Bet Israel, which means I'm the house of Israel, even by their modern sensibility. So if you want to say that I'm anti myself, go ahead, right? But you came to the wrong place, right? I by blood, right? And even if you want to go E1B1A blood, if you know what that is, you probably don't. Right, but you're just making assumptions, and you're just trying to do something which is called ad hominem. You just try to make fun of somebody. It's like when somebody says your mama, and they have nothing to say. So actually call me out for actual legit things. Okay, right? Know of who I am, right? before you go ahead and try to dismiss me as something that just makes you feel better about yourself, right? If you want this to come together and be connectivity and make sure there is no racism, then don't be racist towards me, even if you don't mean to be. Right? I'm literally saying go on YouTube. Like, go on YouTube and look up. Well, how is that racist, by the way? Go look up in history. Go pick up a book then and look up pictures of Israel in the 1920s and in the late 1800s and in the mid 1800s. And you tell me what the people there look like. How is that racist? Is that historic? Is that scientific? Is it racist? It's 11:11, baby. Love you. Right? You said you can't be Egyptian and Shem. No, no, no. You can be Kemetic because people of Kemet left with the people of Israel, correct? See, I'm not gonna lie. You see what I'm saying? We got to be careful now. We got to be careful. You see what I'm saying? People don't want to go through this, and people are trying to shift the goalposts, and people are trying to lie, and people are upset that maybe somebody's bringing out their lies or that they've been caught in one. Like, let's be honest. Let's be real. Let's be real. I'm not telling you I feel like my feelings are feckless. My feelings are feckless. Okay? Feelings to the side. I don't opine. I'm not giving you an opinion. I'm saying look up what did the people look like who lived there in the 1920s. Go look they look like in the 1800s. The same people that were not there, you're trying to tell me that these olive colored people who are coming in and now are dealing with sunlight and having sun cancer and all types of stuff, you're telling me they're the same people that are there and then won't admit to me that, hey, I don't know. Let me just look real quick. Let me open up a book real quick. Let me go look at a video real quick. That's your issue. Not that I'm lying, is that you don't want to accept it. Right? I'm not telling you what somebody else, I'm telling you when I say go look up what a Negro is, according to people at the time of Spanish Inquisition, go look up what they called a Negro, and then go look up how they went looking for them in Negro land. Do you know where Negro land is? Do you know what that was? Do you know what that is? Do you know what that was? Go look up Negro land. It's something you can look at, by the way, at the Library of Congress or on the Library of Congress website. They'll verify it for you if you don't believe me. And when you go and look it up and you see that they went looking for Negroes in Negro land, and you see that that's West Africa, and you see that that's Nigerian, you see that there's a lot of Ghanaians in the same branch of family, stuff like that. And when you look, they'll even put on, this is not our maps, this is maps of people who colonized there. They say the scattered Israelites are there, and they say the kingdom of Judah is there. There's castles that they put us in and turned into slave castles. They tell you that's what they believe it is. The same people that they went where that they went looking for Negroes, the same places that these Negroes were in, where Christopher Columbus was sent to go and make slaves out of them for Queen Isabel, and was allowed by the Pope of the time. And they took a Hebrew interpreter who used Hebrew dialect to be able to talk to the people that they met in Haiti. Tell me, this is stuff you can look up. How is that racist? It is not. And I'm not saying to this out of anger. I'm excited, but I'm saying this because I want you to really get this. How do we come together if you won't admit that a truth is a truth? I'm not telling you my feelings on anything. I told you, look in this source, look in this source, look in this source, look in this source, look in this source. I gave you sources. That's what you guys say all the time. You got to have quantitative and qualitative data. The quality of the data is impeccable. Because what I'm saying is credible, because I have enough Holy Spirit in me that what I'm saying is incredible. And how you doing, Sister Nakia, if I didn't say so earlier? How you doing, Sister Crystal? Right? You can't be the standard if you're going to be a lie. Thank you, babe. That's a better way of saying it. You're victim shaming and trying to call me a racist, when everything that I've said is something you can look up. Once again, ad hominem doesn't get you anywhere. You got to do better there. You got to do better. Ad hominem is like saying your mama. Your mama doesn't win anybody an argument. Maybe when you were in 5th grade, 6th grade at the most. I think maybe some people carry that in the high school, the really immature ones. But you got to do better. See what I'm saying? You got to do better. We can't even have a conversation because you just don't like the fact, or you're trolling at this point, but you don't like the fact that somebody said you are wrong and can show you why you're wrong. And once again, a man with a mission a man without a mission is a dangerous man. For them, a black man with a mission is a dangerous man. They don't like our fruit. The fruit of the spirit is great for us. The fruit of the spirit, it causes their kingdom to collapse. They can't handle it. All they can do is slander, just like they did our folk, our kingdom folk. That's all they can do is slander. That's all they got. That's all they have are lies. And it used to be they could tell a lie, and if you didn't agree with it, they could go ahead and string you from a tree. You don't have that power. You're not even allowed you're not even allowed to stay in this if the Holy Spirit says otherwise. And you can't stand it. You don't have authority. We come together as a community on here. If you do something to our brother or sister out there, we will come and we will let you know about yourself if we're not led to have to do something to you. It's over. And you don't like that it's over. And when you do something, see, you don't like the fact when somebody says, okay, chairs aren't just for wrestling. Wow. Sorry about that. You don't like it when people say, don't let you know the chairs aren't just for wrestling anymore. Right? You don't like it when somebody let you know chairs aren't just for wrestling. You can get a piece of this out on the riverbanks. Same riverbanks, right? That here's part of the story nobody told you about. Same riverbanks where it wasn't just boats coming in, it wasn't just people fighting on chairs. Those were people in chains, right? Not but a block away, or maybe let me not say a block away, but within easily where you could see maybe a quarter mile away from there. Some of the people that probably came to help and fight were walking down a place, walking on a historic, it's a historic site, and they were walking down the sidewalk and probably saw a ruckus coming and jumped from there to this historic site to remind you about the slaves that were coming on that same river, and they jumped off of that sidewalk and started putting it to those people. Right? We can't let them off. You can't let this off the hook anymore. I'm not saying let them as far as white people. I'm saying you can't let liars off the hook. You don't get to be the barometer anymore. You don't get to be the standard. Lies were the standard long enough. They messed us up long enough. They hurt us long enough. They did things to our women long enough. They did things to our men long enough. They made you think that you had to change who you were. And now all of a sudden here they are getting surgeries to be exactly what it is. Remember, they used to have the corsets on, and they used to have whatever you call the bell-shaped things that they would put on the bottom of their dresses to make it look like they had some busts and some hips and all that, and they made sure that they tied stuff together so that the breasts would be mashed together and pop out and everything like that. Meanwhile, they were telling you were nothing, but you had it naturally. And they put masks on you because the women didn't like the fact that you were more beautiful than them. And they have you naked in a museum, alive, and men would be around you doing things to themselves, whipping things out, looking at you while you were in a clear glass, having all this happen, and you had to get used to that. They put you in zoos, not just in Europe, not just in the West Indies, not just in Africa, not just in China. They put you in zoos in New York and in Chicago and in the Carolinas. You they shaved some of you guys' teeth so that you would look like you had shark teeth, so that people would be that much more entertained when they came by. One of which the brothers they did that to, he took his own life in Missouri as well, right? The stock market, come on. The stock market is where you do what? You have stocks and bonds. You were the stock, and the bond was what they paid for you. Your birth certificate has a bond around it on the border, and then the stock is in all caps in the center. Who is the stock? What is the stock? You are. And there's no gold or silver to back up money anymore. You're still the bond. That's why your birth certificate is worth more money than you'll ever get in your life, most of us. And you're going to tell me that I'm racist, as if I created a system of oppression for you. How does that work? That the person that wasn't even born yet created a system of oppression to oppress himself. And I did all this so that I could come on today and say I did all this with today in mind, thinking, "Ooh, I can't wait to be able to tell them how they did this to me because I came up with this thing to myself." And even in all that, guess what? I'm called to do. I'm still called to fight for any one of you who come from my enemy that will decide that they will no longer be my enemy and will be in righteousness with me, and to teach you the way I would my own flesh and blood, and to love you and to honor you and to respect you and to allow you to be grafted in so that you would no longer be separate from me, but you could be a part of me. But you can't come in with the nonsense. I'm still called to love you and teach you, even if you don't want to accept correction. And even if you want to say I'm a racist, I still have to pray for you, even when you pray for my demise, to your heathen deity, to your heathen God, to your George Washington, and lift them up and put up things in mountains and have an Esau spirit. I still pray for you because you still are loved. And if you knew who you were, you realize you are necessary. And if you realize who you really were, you would realize in you was a majesty. I'm still called to do that, even when you call me a racist, because I love you. And because the one who loved me, who first loved me before I loved myself, asked me to do so. That's the culture I come from. So be mad at me all you want. But just because you can't handle my love, so you think this is just chastisement only, but the Most High chastises those that he loves. He got to discipline me too. When I do wrong, he got to come at me and say, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong. When I do something wrong to my wife, he got to come to me and say, hey, you wrong, make it right. If I do something wrong for my child, he got to say, that's a bad example, you wrong, go make it right. I got to deal with that first. If I preach a sermon to you, guess how long I've been speaking to myself about it for? And if it makes you cringe, guess how much I've been cringing? And if it makes you mad, guess how mad I was when I found out about it? I wouldn't, as much as you think I do this because I hate you, I wouldn't do this if I didn't love you. Because for real, this is tiring sometimes. Not speaking truth. It's tiring speaking to people that call me a racist because they want to defend racism. It's tiring. It's tiring. It's tiring for my family. My son feels it when I feel it. Right? I've gone and been sitting down, and my son can see I'm going, and he comes and puts his arms around his father because he knows his father ain't feeling that well sometimes after doing this stuff. But I do it because I love you. My wife has gotten angered and stuff and frustrated and stuff because of some of the stuff that y'all do. There's times that I get tired of seeing them go through what they go through just because they're attached to me and because of what I've been called to do. Right? This is a family thing. There's SOC members where I know y'all tired of it. And y'all call me up and be like, Pastor, man, you need to just stop talking to people, blah, blah, and this and that, whatever, right? Because you tired of it. And we got more to go. There's more to lift. However, one thing I want to let everybody know, no matter how much you're trying to change the dream and all that, we built for this. Right? It might be tough, but these shoulders are tough. You might call us whatever names, but we have a name that's above every other name. You got to know who you are. They cannot change the dream anymore because we know what the dream is. And they can't change the dream anymore because we keep the dream. We protect the dream. They cannot change the dream anymore because we love the dream. They cannot change the dream anymore because we honor the process that gets us to what we have dreamed. Don't let them. Don't let them change you. Don't let them fool you. They're not the barometer anymore. They're not the thermometer anymore. We're not going by Fahrenheit no more. We're going back to Celsius. You see what I'm saying? They don't get to tell us anymore. You had your chance. You were in the sun. You got to operate in it. All that stuff. Hey, it's done now. You had your chance and you fumbled the bag, right? You fumbled the bag, Esau. It could have been your inheritance. You could have done some stuff to make it righteous. You could have been a true ally that you said that you were. Now we see you for what you are. It's time for us to go from from trickster to usurper. That's what Jacob means anyways. We always talk about trickster. It means usurper. We usurp authority over those who are wicked. That spirit is done, and now there's a spirit of Israel that's coming through. Get out the way if you don't want no part of it. If I was in the world and I was going back to my old days where Ludacris was on, I would say something else. I'd say, move, get out the way, but I'll just be nice about it. Get out the way. You don't want this. It's your warning. It's a warning to you. Something gonna happen because you can't handle the Most High. Your arms are too short to box with Yah. The standard that I have is something that reaches higher than you can see. The standard that I have reaches past what you could put your hands on an Emmett Till, reaches past the Trayvon Martin, reaches past the Sarah, and reaches past the oh gosh, forgive me. There's so many of them. It's hard to even keep up with these names. But you can't stop this. Really, you never did. You postponed, but you can't stop this. You can't. Because you battle with hate. I battle with love. Can't stop, won't stop. Right? You battle with hate. I battle with love. Love win every time. Matter of fact, Yahweh is love and he's eternal. Hate has an end. He hates certain deeds and spirits and things like that. But at the end of the day, he's eternal. Your hate doesn't outlast eternity. Even if your hate were to take my physical life, my spiritual life will last longer than yours. I roll with love. Even chastisement is love. But you'll notice in my chastisement, I don't chastise you because I'm mad at you. I chastise you because you need to be saved. Right? A father who chastises his son should only do so from a place of love and of empathy. Right? It's been very rare. I don't know if I can count on one hand. I don't know how many fingers I would put up to maybe count on how many times I've actually spanked my son. Right? Legit. And not even just a little tap, even. If you want to put those, maybe I go past one hand. I'm talking about legit, right? Solomon doesn't need a lot of that stuff to get the mindset, right? However, right? Anytime I have only done so from a place of empathy. Guess what that means? That means I literally think to myself, how many times, if I was in his position and thought like him and had his even tender head and stuff like that, how many times would I need to go ahead and spank him before he gets the point? That means I've had to go away if I was angry and get myself together. That means I had to chill out. That means I might have to even eat something to calm myself down and drink something, whatever. But then when I come back and I'm ready, I have to even think that through because I'm not spanking me, I'm spanking him. And so what is it? Like for me, I've told people when people go, well, man, it seems like you got this, so they spanked you for this many minutes, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but to be honest, I kind of needed it where I was. My son doesn't. Like I was kind of out there on some of the stuff that I did. And I like to lie. I like to do blah, blah, blah. My son's not even trying to lie. He can't even lie that well. Like he tries to play games here or there and he stops because he realized he can't do it. So I'm not going to correct him or chastise him outside of what he needs. And a true father, physical father, spiritual father, true mother, physical mother, spiritual mother, we should never chastise outside of what somebody actually needs. But if I give you something that you might need it, right? So I might give you something and you might need it. But I promise you, I'm not giving you something because I'm angry or because I don't like you. Yeah, correction can make the corrector feel like ish, yeah. So I have to be careful. Like I'm not trying to come at anybody, right? Anybody that I know, I might have to change my approach sometimes for sure, right? I've learned that even with my wife and stuff, where I might be thinking something and I might be just thinking I'm saying something and she's not getting it, not because of anything other than I'm not actually presenting something in the manner that she can even comprehend what I'm talking about, right? And then I'm frustrated, but I need to work on my communication. And I'm thinking because I can communicate with millions, it means I'm communicating as a husband. Might not be the same. I'm learning, right? But I'm just saying, no, excuse me. I'm learning, no buts. I'm learning. Also, Also, I need people to recognize, like, there's never an intent, at least not anymore. Now that I've become more mature in the word, there is never an intent that says I'm trying to do something to somebody else simply so that I can go ahead and make them feel bad. If I know you might feel bad, sometimes I even have to pray about that and say, I'm probably going to say something that's going to make them feel bad. Is it necessary that they need to hear it? At least in that fashion. Sometimes I even pray when I know I have to say it in a certain way. I pray, can you give me another way? Right? So I'm just trying to say that, right? This is not white versus black. This is not Indian versus Chinese. This is not South African versus Tanzanian. This is, you know what I'm saying? This is not Igbo against this is not Igbo against Shwi. There's none of that. This is just real talk. All right? Just real talk. Just real talk, right? We got to get to this place where we can't let them keep changing the dream. This year we hashtag expect the blessing, and we look forward to righteousness and what the Most High has. And expecting the blessing, you have to expect it from a righteous Yah. That means that you have to he's expecting righteousness so he can release righteousness. And in expecting the blessing, we can't change the dream. What is your dream? Right? Let me ask it this way. We don't have time. I'm already over. It's time for us to take our leave. What is your righteous dream? Not just your dream, but what is your righteous dream? And now, what is the righteousness that you need to do to obtain your righteous dream? And now, how righteous do you really hold it? Because if you hold it righteous, you're not going to let people just come in and do whatever. This could change your finances for the rest of your life. This could change how your children act. Even if you acted a certain way, you could cut off generational curses that would allow your children to be different, right? This could cause you to actually find an actual wife or an actual husband instead of somebody that you tried to make one after the fact. What is it that you have been told that you will do, or if you will do it, because you have to, it's you have to be in his will. It's a living sacrifice. You get to make the choice. You have free will. So what is it that you will do to meet what he said? He already told you what you can get. That's not even so. If he said you can get it, that's already done. That's never even the issue, right? I don't care, Chris. Noah Carr doesn't know what he's talking about. Did you present the stuff that I just gave to Noah Carr? No, right? So you don't care about racism. Oh, I got a black friend, so I'm not racist. You got a black pastor, you got a pastor, and they said, "Well, I don't care." Right? Not all Israel is Israel. Why not let you up? What, to talk? You haven't even shown the respect. Go look up what I'm saying. Fine. How about this? My number, I'll do this for you. I'll do you one better. All the information to contact us is on the main TikTok page. You can go and click on the link tree. Do me a favor. Before you contact me, go and research the things that I did and show the respect that you want me to show you as somebody that I don't even know. Show me the respect of looking to see if what I'm saying is right or righteous. I don't even care about being right. I want to be righteous. You can be right all you want. If you do that, then contact me and tell me why everything that I've said that you can look up, tell me why everything that I said you can look up points towards what I'm saying, but you still won't listen. Instead of telling me I'm going to just look for a black pastor, like somebody says, I'm not racist, I'm looking for a black friend. If you can do that, when you call me up, we can continue this conversation. And if you show respect more than you have today, than to just tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about and to tell me like I'm basically a heathen or a liar, which is what you did, right? And no, you didn't use those exact words, but that's what you did when you tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And act like I haven't studied this for myself and I haven't been to school myself and I haven't traveled the world myself and all these things, right? If you want to do that, sir, then I'll consider talking to you. Right. But if you can't even handle respecting me enough to even see if what I'm saying is something you can look up, then just leave it there. Because what's the point? You're not the barometer. I mean that with all due love and chastisement of the Most High. You're not the barometer. Right? Foolishness. Anyways, so that being said, thank you. Everybody, we appreciate you. We have to be the barometer and the keeper. You see that? The craziness of somebody who says they love you and then says, oh, but I have a black pastor that disagrees with you or whatever. I don't care if you had a white pastor or a black pastor. You see what I'm saying? But you still got to love them. And sometimes chastisement is love. I think, you know what? I'm so thankful to Yahweh every time, especially Ravak HaKodash said, every single time that we aside that we say this stuff, and she literally allows these people to be the example that we need to see. Like she literally allows us to see. Like we just talking about this stuff and there's something about, yeah, you're racist and blah, blah. Are you? And all this other stuff. And then sure enough, he left. Instead of going to the sources that we gave that have nothing to do with feelings, his immediate response when he comes back, I just talked to a black pastor, Noah Carr, and he believes everything that I said is right. You sound like the guy that says, I got black friends, therefore I'm not racist. Right? You believe I'm a black pastor. Well, I don't think you even believe that I'm a black pastor. But here's the wild part about that. I know he's gone. Let me just say this. Let's take our leave, right? Now we just giving time to somebody that don't even need it or deserve it. At least in this context doesn't deserve it, right? But here's the wild part is I'm a black pastor too. So what does that have to do with anything? The only thing what he's saying then is, oh, you ain't really a black pastor. You don't know the word. Thank you for the love. Right. I mean, out here looking like a black cowboy, which actually is part of our history too. Right. But love y'all. Appreciate you. We'll probably be talking about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. later tonight. So we'll try to get that to y'all later tonight. So hopefully you'll join us 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. I know a lot of people are dealing with snow or weather. And so hopefully you guys have a great day. Stay safe. Stay hydrated. How you doing, Minister Willie? Minister Castleberry or Minister Select? I can't remember. It's been a while, but glad to see you up on here. So hopefully we'll see you guys tonight, whether you join us on the podcast, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We appreciate you. If you're on TikTok with us, we're going to do a shout out. If you've never done the shout out with us before, we think you'll enjoy it. It's a way where you can get more information about us and things that we do, and hopefully it'll bless you. As a reminder, please check out Brother Jermaine's clothing line and stuff. We try to support each other as a diaspora and support each other's business and things of that nature. So hopefully you can do so. You can check him out at jermaineinsurance@gmail.com. That's JERMAINEINSURANCE, jermaineinsurance@gmail.com. If you reach out to him, you should be able to contact him. He's also one of our Facebook friends in our Facebook group. And so hopefully you guys can check him out, support the clothing and stuff. You guys have actually seen me wear a lot of his stuff in times past, and you've seen pictures and stuff. We'll have some up during our shout out. If you're once again on TikTok or in another platform, you want to come over and join us for the shout out, feel free. We can only do it on TikTok only. So come over if you'd like to. It'll give you more information on how we roll and how we work. I'll explain that in just a second. As always, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And the tincture of the month is elderberry. Sisters, remember that we're trying to just gauge and see if there's any interest for a possibility of a cruise for you guys, for Women in Red. All family members are invited, of course, but if you'd like to be able to go on a cruise with the sisters for the end of the year, we're trying to see if it's not going to be a cruise, it'll be something else, but we're trying to do a meetup for sisters only. We're going to work on something for the brothers as well, too, for the month of November. I think Men and Brothers in Black is going to be November. Women in Red is going to be the last Saturday, I believe, of December. So you can go ahead and look for that. Anything that we have on our calendar, if you don't already have a calendar, by the way, a physical calendar, or a virtual calendar even, but our calendar on the website, you can look up calendar on there. Don't forget Patreon members. We got SOC University up and going. So if you'd like to join, you got to go through Patreon now. And we thank you guys for being on. Appreciate you so very, very much. And if you'd like to go on Patreon just to be a member, just to get some of the regular stuff, feel free to go on there as well. So we thank you. We appreciate you. We honor you. Okay, Sister Laura, if you can, just remind me to matter of fact, if you go to the link tree on the main TikTok page, click on that. You should be able to go ahead and order one through there, or at least fill out an order for us. Right now, because of snow and other things, we still have some that are waiting to go out. Some of you, we know you have received it. And I know there are some that said that they didn't get it, so I am aware of it. But we can't really do much about any of that stuff until tomorrow. But once again, if you did, so once again, we need you to honor the process if you can. If you're somebody who wants one, and even if you gave a donation for one, we need you to fill out the paperwork. So if you didn't fill out, or the virtual form. So if you didn't fill out the form, then you might not have gotten one, or we could have just dropped the ball too. But there could be a possibility that sometimes if you didn't fill out the form, or if your form was that we didn't get to you. Okay, so we are going to look into that and everything. So we got until tomorrow to start sending them out again. So if you are interested, just let us know, or fill out the form if you get a chance to. Okay, all the information is on either the podcast, Facebook, YouTube in description, or you can look on TikTok and click on the link tree. And we'll make sure that we get that information to you. Okay. So thank you all again. Appreciate you. If you're on TikTok, stick around for the shout out. I'll explain how that works in just a little bit. To everybody, thank you as always. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said check out Elder Maya, Bloom and Flourish. Elderberry is the tincture of the month. I think I did, but just in case, there you go. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace. Take care on this MLK Day. And we do honor the Most High for giving us MLK. He was a gift. That being said, if you're still with us on TikTok, this is how the shout out works.